Hello, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties earlier. I am your host, Clifford Johnston, and we're getting going today at 5:11 p.m., June 6th, 2026. And I will be telling you our subject for today will be mental illness and marijuana. That's going to be an hour-long seminar that I hosted, and then we're going to be doing a little bit stuff after that, and we'll be, instead of nothing has changed, so if you heard it earlier, you got it, but I'm not going to re-illustrate everything. It's really good stuff. Some election coverage. California's ballots are apparently and threatened of being fraud. We'll see what's going on. I honestly know they are, so it is. Like, I have a ballot here that was supposed to be for somebody that's a felon, and I just don't understand how any of this works anymore. We got to fix this. So here we are. Without further ado, I was thinking about putting it up to 1 second. You're gonna see a glitch, but I'm gonna get it up to 50 FPS for this. Okay. Without further, you see what happened last time was yesterday. When I went to bed, my mic was on mute. So when I switched to this screen, it was on mute. And yeah, I need to trust and verify that I didn't mute it because my mic says it's on, but it's not. So 30 minutes gone, but it's okay. I will redo it again and again and again if I must. The information will get out there one way or another. Although sometimes, the stuff off the cuff sometimes is way better than planned stuff. So anyway, here we go. And play all.
This is what we're going to talk about today.
Really quick before we get started, I'm going to
Facts
read you
formed
Google's
around mental
definition
illness and
of
marijuana.
schizophrenia.
Death via PowerPoint edition.
Schizophrenia is a severe chronic
Why
brain
THC
disorder.
The reason
that
THC has such a profound effect on your state of mind is because its main target, the CB1 receptor, is everywhere. It acts like a widespread
disrupts
volume knob for the
how a person
neurotransmitters
perceives reality,
like glutamate
thinks, and behaves. Individuals may experience hallucinations,
GABA.
delusions,
Global coverage
and disorganized thinking, making it difficult to function daily.
Memory,
While there is no cure, it is highly treatable through a combination of medication and therapy.
Movement.
Symptoms,
THC affects
and let me tell you what, if they're not on their medication, it's awful.
Sheer volume.
Symptoms
Scientific studies
typically present
CB1 receptors
in the late adolescence or early childhood, or early adulthood, and are grouped into three main categories.
Why melatonin is more target specific.
I read all this already.
Melatonin is a hormone designed to
psychotic positive symptoms
to the body,
or abnormal behaviors or experiences to be person's state, to a person's state. So their well-being is.
Most melatonin receptors are concentrated.
I don't really know what they mean by that. I tried to say earlier that it was like that grin that you get that they have or whatever, the demons or whatever give them. Anyway, the hallucinations perceive things that are not there, such as hearing voices, the most common, seeing, smelling, or feeling things. But then there's other things like delusions, strong false beliefs that are maintained despite evidence to the contrary, like believing someone is trying to harm them, like the cops or anyway. Negative symptoms that take away or reduce typical functions and emotions includes a flat affect, not effect, affect. Reduced facial expressions or monotone voice, lack of motivation, and social withdrawal. Cognitive symptoms affect memory, attention, and executive functioning. This often includes trouble concentrating, processing information, and making decisions. So causes and factors. So here's where I got angry and I went on a rant. while
You
there
can change
while
the
there
setting
are
of the lights,
while the exact
the
causes
thermostat, and the security
isn't
system
fully
in every single
understood.
room at once.
The exact cause isn't fully understood
So,
because, in this sense, at the very end,
number
schizophrenia
99,
is
let's
believed
use
to
the
be a
AC, let's
result
not
from
do
a
it.
combination of factors. So it says, while
So
the
this is what
exact
I ask
cause,
it
this should
next.
be the exact
It would ask
causes,
me, would you like
aren't
to know more
fully
about
understood.
these
Not
different
isn't, are not.
receptor densities
Causes are
affect
not
your
fully
long-term
understood. See
sleep
that what I
quality
mean? Like
or
it just,
memory?
anyway. Schizophrenia is believed to
And then when I
result
say, and this is
to
kind
be
of
resulted from
paraphrase
a
it,
combination of
if
factors.
you're
That would
trying
be
to
proper English.
actually convince
Even
the
AI, I guess, doesn't know English.
text,
Anyway,
so it's
genetics.
not going to get it right because I wasn't
And this is
using
the
the proper
Google
microphone.
AI or
If
whatever.
you
It
were
just says
trying to
Google
actually
when you
go
put
to
what
sleep,
is schizophrenia in
you would
Google.
actually
That's what it
want
says.
melatonin because it uses less
Uh,
brain receptors.
Here,
Correcting,
what?
correct using more would
Genetic.
keep your
Oh,
brain active
did
and
genes
more
play a
awake.
major role
Speaking
with
of
a
which, I'm actually kind of high at like right now, so I
significantly higher
apologize
risk
for
if you are a
mentioning.
first-degree relative or
That is an
parent
intuitive way to look at it,
or
and you're
like a
touching on a
parent or
key
sibling
concept in
with
neurobiology:
the disorder.
specificity.
Brain chemistry. Imbalances in naturally occurring brain chemicals.
Specificity.
Neurotransmitters like
Specificity.
dopamine and glutamine are implicated. Or
Specificity.
yeah,
There,
basically
that's like gonna be a
they don't
blooper
really know
one. That's
exactly
gonna be
which ones
funny.
it affects, but those two
Versus
they're thinking that
system-wide
it does.
takeover. Here we go.
Um,
So this
but we'll
is
go into what it really does too.
how we're gonna tackle
Environmental
it. While more
factors, especially with
receptors doesn't
marijuana.
automatically mean more
The early
weight.
life
Your
trauma,
logic is
birth
correct regarding why
complications, and
melatonin is
childhood
often a better
adversity
tool for
can
natural
contribute
sleep.
to its development.
Here's how the receptor math
Diagnosis.
actually plays out
There is
when
no
you're trying
single
to drift
medical
off.
test for schizophrenia.
The light
Diagnosis
switch versus
is
main
typically made
purpose.
up of a
Melatonin, the light switch.
psychiatric
It's
or
noted
medical
it hits
health
very
professional
few
who
receptors
evaluates a
because the
patient's symptoms,
receptors are concentrated in
medical
the brain's
family
master
history,
clock, the
and
SCN,
rules out
as we
other conditions.
designated that
Like, oh
earlier.
my god.
Melatonin acts as
Substance
a
abuse or medications that could
signal.
cause
It tells the brain
that
it's
could be
night
causing
now.
the psychosis.
It doesn't force you to sleep. It just opens the door for your
Most
natural sleep
individuals with
process to take over.
schizophrenia require
THC,
a
the
ongoing
main
support,
breaker,
but with
because
proper,
THC hits
consistent management,
receptors in the cortex, hippocampus,
many
and
live fulfilling
amygdala.
lives.
It is louder.
Many can live
It can
fulfilling
shut
lives.
down the parts of the brain that can cause
Antipsychotic
anxiety, helping
medications.
you fall asleep.
These are the cornerstone of
But it
treatment and help
also
manage
interacts
psychotic
with the parts
symptoms
of the
like
brain that
hallucinations
handle
or
memory and
delusions.
dreaming. So you could be sleepwalking.
Psychosocial
So you may think
interventions.
that
Therapies
your
like a
dreams are not what they are,
cognitive
like nightmares.
behavioral therapy, CBT, family
2.
support,
The active problem.
and social skills
Biphasic effects.
training
You're
help
right that
patients
hitting too
cope with
many
symptoms,
receptors can
manage daily
backfire.
stresses,
THC is
and
what scientists
maintain
call
relationships.
biphasic, meaning it can
Specialized care,
different
community
effects at different
support
doses.
programs, and
Often
vocational
sedating
training can assist
because it
individuals
slows
with
down
housing and employment
excitatory
and
signaling higher
and
than the low dose.
independent living.
And
For
high dose
additional
can
resources
actually become a
and
stimulant
information on
in a higher.
accessing mental health professionals or
At this
support
point,
groups,
you'll
you
see
can
in the
visit, and they give
videos
you a
about
website, National
for
Institutes of Health,
schizophrenics, anything over
or
10
the
is too
National
much. Anything over 10%.
Alliance of Mental
So a
Illnesses. And
low dose
we'll be
would
getting into
be,
this, how
let's say
little
it's
they've helped in the past year, including Adult Protective
or
Services.
2
So,
puffs of a
I
10%
mean, they can't
would
really
be like
say too
1%.
much
This
to
is
me.
what
Of
we're going to
course,
talk
that was
about
running in the
today.
background.
Facts
But anyway,
forms around
here
mental
we go.
illness and
Without further
marijuana.
ado,
Death via PowerPoint edition by me. Why THC hits more.
bro,
The reason
this is one of
THC
those
has
days.
such a profound effect on your state of mind is
I
because
swear to God, I
its
paused
main
it too.
target,
Whatever,
the
man.
CB1 receptor, is everywhere. It acts like a widespread volume knob for the neurotransmitters like glutamate and GABA. Global coverage, because CB1 receptors are located in the hippocampus, memory, the cerebral cortex, thinking, and the cerebellum, movement. THC affects almost every aspect of cognitive and physical function. Sheer volume. Scientific studies often note that CB1 receptors are so numerous that they far outnumber the receptors for many other common drugs, including opioids. Why melatonin is more target specific. Melatonin is a hormone designed to signal nighttime to the body. Its receptors, MT1, so numerous that they far outnumber and MT2 are much more specialized. The master clock. Most melatonin receptors are concentrated in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN, a tiny region of the brain that controls your sleep-wake cycle, your circadian rhythm. subtitle signaling, or subtle signaling, sorry. While there are melatonin receptors in other areas, like the skin or gut, their presence in the brain is sparse compared to the dense forest of cannabinoid receptors. Melatonin doesn't take over brain signaling. The THC can. It simply nudges the existing clock. Comparison table, receptors. You guys can go ahead and look at this and pause it if you want. Summary. If we think the brain as a single building, melatonin is a single light switch in the basement that tells the building to go into night mode. THC is like a master override system that can change the setting of the lights, the thermostat, and the security system in every single room at once. So, no more nighty night, let's use THC, let's not do that. So this is what I ask it next. Or it asks me, would you like to know more about these different receptor densities affect your long-term sleep quality or memory? And then I say, and this is going to paraphrase it. If you're trying to actually, because it's speech to text, so it's not going to get it right because I wasn't using the proper microphone. If you were trying to actually go to sleep, you would actually want melatonin because it uses less brain receptors. Correct using more would keep your brain active and more awake. Speaking of which, I'm actually kind of high at like right now, so that's also another reason I can't read this. That is an intuitive way to look at it, and you're touching on a key concept in neurobiology: specificity. 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 There, that's like gonna be a blooper one. That's gonna be funny. Versus system-wide takeover. Here we go. So this is how we're gonna tackle this. While more receptors doesn't automatically mean more awake, your logic is correct regarding why melatonin is often a better tool for natural sleep. Here's how the receptor math actually plays out when you're trying to drift off. The light switch versus main breaker. Melatonin, the light switch. As you noted, it hits very few receptors because the receptors are concentrated in the brain's master clock, the SCN, as we designated that earlier. Melatonin acts as a specific signal. It tells the brain it's night now. It doesn't force you to sleep. It just opens the door for your natural sleep process to take over. THC, the main breaker, because THC hits the receptors in the cortex, hippocampus, and amygdala. It is louder. It can shut down the parts of the brain that can cause anxiety, helping you fall asleep. But it also interacts with the parts of the brain that handle memory and dreaming. So you could be sleepwalking. So you may think that your dreams are not what they are, like nightmares. 2. The active problem. Biphasic effects. You're right that hitting too many receptors can backfire. THC is what scientists call biphasic, meaning it can different effects at different doses. Often sedating because it slows down excitatory signaling in the low dose. In high dose can actually become a stimulant. In a higher, at this point, you'll see in the video, it's about, for schizophrenics, anything over 10 is too much, anything over 10%. So a low dose would be, let's say, 1 or 2 puffs of a 10% would be like 1%, and then that's a low dose. That's a microdosing. And you got a high dose that we were at right now with 30, and then we got the 65, and he went, you were getting called out for doing drugs or whatnot, but we didn't really understand what was going on, so we're trying to give you a benefit of a doubt while showing you this. And then, so the high dose can actually become a stimulant by hitting so many receptors at once. It can trigger racing thoughts and increased heart rate or paranoia, all of which keep your brain very active and very awake. So we're trying to be guardians, so showing you this stuff. 3, sleep quality, architecture. This is where your less is more theory really shines because melatonin is so targeted it doesn't mess with your sleep architecture. The stages of sleep. Melatonin allows you to move naturally through light, deep, and REM sleep. THC is so widespread that it tends to suppress certain stages. Specifically, here we go, REM sleep, the stage where you dream and process emotions. While you might conk out faster, your brain isn't actually doing the cleaning and filing it needs to do because too many cannabinoid receptors are being occupied. So it's not actually like it's not making you may be sleeping, but you're not sleeping. That's what I kind of was trying to say by sleepwalking. You're not really doing it right. Submarine. If your goal is a natural transition to sleep, you are 100% correct. You want to target low receptor approach of melatonin. It provides a nudge rather than a shove. Using a high receptor compound like THC is more like a chemical sedative. It might knock you out, but it's often too noisy for the brain to get a high quality rest. So you're basically resting for nothing. So why would you want to do that? It's insane.
Okay, everyone. I tried to give my stream 10,000 upload here. I'm trying to figure out if that's what's going on. I'm not sure why. Like Kick was fine. Twitch was literally garbage. I mean, you couldn't hear a single thing, and there was two people on there. I don't know what to do. Um, Usually it's not like that. And let me look at YouTube now that it's re-gone here and see if that fixed it. Hopefully. Sorry.
So how long have we've been not getting the proper sleep? So we're at each other's throats because we can't even the sleep we're getting isn't working correctly. Like in general, like anybody that has schizophrenia, I'm trying to make a blanket statement in case we're understanding the household or anyway, whoever's watching this. Would you like me to look into how the morning grogginess compares between the two based on how long they stay bound to those receptors? And I'm like, can you add that if somebody is schizophrenic, how it would definitely not be helping somebody sleep? This is for informational purposes. This is a response usually after so thinking. This is for informational purposes only. For medical advice or diagnosis, consult a professional. It never really says that, like, before show thinking. So this could be biased in my opinion. So that's why I don't really like. You got to do cognitive thinking. You got to do your own research and verify that this stuff is correct. Because I did mine, but I mean, that's what people taught me in school. You gotta trust but verify that too. Show thinking. That is a critical point. While THC can be disruptive for a typical brain sleep, for someone with schizophrenia, it can be genuinely dangerous and counterproductive. When you add schizophrenia into the mix, the receptor math we discussed earlier becomes even more complicated because of how THC interacts with dopamine. The dopamine overload. The leading scientific theory of schizophrenia, the dopamine hypothesis suggests that the brain already has overactive dopamine signaling in certain areas. THC's role, THC triggers a
I'm
release
just
of
gonna drop it
dopamine.
down
For
to
most people,
144 to see
this
if Twitch
is
fixes it,
part
and
of
if
the
Twitch doesn't fix
high,
it, I'm just gonna turn Twitch off.
the
Like I'm not gonna
schizophrenic
have that
complex.
be representing me,
In a
like, cause I don't know what's
schizophrenic
going on right
brain,
now with it,
this
dude. Like
extra
I'm
surge
pretty
of
much getting
dopamine
over
acts
Twitch.
like pouring gasoline on a fire.
Like literally, YouTube and Kick are doing just fine.
Instead of helping the person sleep, it can trigger or worsen positive symptoms like hallucinations, delusions, and paranoia. 2. High density and risk. Remember how we said THC hits receptors almost everywhere? In schizophrenia, the parts of the brain that are already misfiring, like the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus, we discussed what those were earlier, are the exact areas where THC receptors density is the highest. So we're talking mobility and we're talking in the brain. So using THC to sleep can inadvertently overactivate these sensitive regions or these areas. Instead of the brain shutting down for rest, it enters a state of higher alert agitation. So, you know, Like if you were to be actually think you're sleeping, you're not sleeping, and you're agitated because you say you're sleeping, but you're
Okay,
not. I don't
and
know.
Twitch
This
is
is if you get what I
officially
mean. So we're both
stopped.
right.
I
Two things could
can't.
be right at the
I
same
don't
time.
know. I think Twitch is being
Melatonin, the
hacked, to be
quiet
honest. So I'm not going to
alternative.
be a part of that crap.
Interesting research shows that people with schizophrenia often have lower than normal natural melatonin levels. Why it helps? Because melatonin is so targeted. Remember that the single light switch thing we talked about in the basement. It doesn't interfere with the dopamine system or the parts of the brain that cause hallucinations. The result is it helps regulate the sleep-wake cycle without adding noise to the already overwhelmed system. Summary. Here you go. Here's a little summary. In short, while someone might think THC will knock them out, for a schizophrenic person it often does the exact opposite. It wakes up the most difficult parts of the disorder, making actual rest impossible. Why? And then so here we are going to a different thing here. Would you like me to look into how CBD, the non-psychoactive part of cannabis, differs from THC and its effects on schizophrenic symptoms? So I don't do this right away, but we do come back to this. Does this affect your pineal gland? And I go on a tangent here to specifically try uh, to corner where it is in the frontal cortex and how it affects other parts of the brain. And like you'll be more aware of this in a minute here. Anyway, this is the target of it. This is why I bring this up. The pineal gland. Does this affect your pineal gland when you say that is this attacking your frontal cortex? Does that cause in the internet, like in between both hemispheres, like isn't isn't a way you affect your pineal gland system or the parts of the brain that cause hallucinations. The result is it helps regulate the sleep-wake cycle without adding noise to the already overwhelmed system. Summary. Here you go. Here's a little summary. In short, while someone might think THC will knock them out, for a schizophrenic person it often does the exact opposite. It wakes up the most difficult parts of the disorder, making actual rest impossible. Why? And then so here we are going to a different thing here. Would you like me to look into how CBD, the non-psychoactive part of cannabis, differs from THC and its effects on schizophrenic symptoms? So I don't do this right away, but we do come back to this. Does this affect your pineal gland? And I go on a tangent here to specifically try to corner where it is in the frontal cortex and how it affects other parts of the brain. And like you'll be more aware of this in a minute here. Anyway, this is the target of it. This is why I bring this up. The pineal gland. Does this affect your pineal gland when you say that is this attacking your frontal cortex? Does that cause in the internet, like in between both hemispheres, like isn't isn't a way you like I said, this transcribed it. So what, like I already gave you a better explanation of what I was trying to say than it read, and it understood. To answer your question, we have to look at how these two very different parts of the brain, the pineal gland and the frontal cortex, are connected, and how THC disrupts the bridge between them. Here we go. And now we're blazing the right path. The pineal gland versus the frontal cortex. These are two different departments in the company. The pineal gland, the timekeeper, located deep in the center of the brain, the epithalamus. It sits right between the two hemispheres. Its main job is to produce melatonin to tell your body when to sleep, aka, what does that sound like? Circadian rhythm. People be always rapping about circadian rhythm. They don't even know where it comes from. And this is the reason people, their third eye, they don't even know, or if they do, they're trying to lay secret codes. I already understood, but people might not. The frontal cortex, the CEO, this is at the very front of your brain. It handles logic, decision making, and filtering your thoughts. Hint at the logic for the rapper. Cough, cough. 2. The bridge between hemispheres. You mentioned the internet in between both hemispheres, and the brain. And it's funny how I didn't really say that. I meant interwebbed, but it took it as internet, and it totally is gonna like run on that, but it's gonna be funny. You'll see. In the brain, this bridge is called the corpus callosum, and this massive bundle of fibers that allows the right and left sides to talk to each other. Hold on. Okay, that won't be happening again. Here we go. The bridge between hemispheres. Here we go. You mentioned the internet in between both hemispheres. The brain, this bridge is called corpus callosum. It's a massive bundle of fibers that allows the left and the right sides of the brain to talk to each other. How THC affects this bridge, and we're talking probably something like fiber optics. Anyway, how the THC affects this bridge. Studies show that heavy THC use, especially during youth, can actually thin the white matter in this bridge. So that's what it's made of in this bridge. When the connection between hemispheres is weakened or noisy, the brain has a harder time distinguishing between an internal thought, your imagination, and an external reality, which you actually hear or see. For someone with schizophrenia, this crosstalk, or noise, is actually what leads to hallucinations. It's like the internet between two sides of the brain is glitching, and the frontal cortex can no longer tell what is real. Does THC attack the pineal gland? It's less of an attack and more of a chemical interference. The melatonin glitch. Researchers show that THC actually inhibits the enzymes in the pineal gland that create melatonin, so it's shutting off the body's natural ability to put itself to sleep correctly on time. The confusion, even through the pineal gland is deep in the center, THC is a global drug. It travels everywhere. It hits receptors in the hypothalamus, which controls the pineal gland, and tells it to stop the natural sleep cycle, aka circadian rhythm. Why this is a perfect storm for schizophrenia. When a person with schizophrenia takes THC to sleep, I say that with loose terms, they are accidentally doing three things at once. Breaking the filter. 1. They weaken the frontal cortex's ability to logic away scary thoughts. 2. Glitching the internet. They disrupt the connection between the brain's hemispheres, making it harder to stay grounded in reality. 3. Stopping the clock. They interfere with the pineal gland's ability to release natural melatonin, which is the only thing that can actually help the brain quiet down naturally. Instead of the brain's powering down for the night, it ends up in a state where it's tired and wired, and the logical front part of the brain's offline, and the imaginative hallucinatory parts of the brain running wild. And here we go. Would you like me to explain how this hemisphere's glitch specifically leads to hearing voices, symptoms that often prevent sleep? Please, yes, do that. Show thinking. When someone says schizophrenia, the way THC interacts with the brain's internal internet, I like how it's going to continue to use that so you guys can like keep up. The corpus callosum creates a specific kind of chaos that makes sleep almost impossible. 1. The glitch in the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is a massive bridge of white matter that connects the left and the right hemispheres. In schizophrenia, the bridge is often structured differently or leaky. THC's impact. Research shows that a high-potency THC can actually cause microstructural damage to the bridge. The result, when the bridge isn't working, the two halves of the brain can't sync up. Like a video call where the audio and the video are out of sync, and the brain starts to feel disconjoined. 2. Why the brain hears voices. Auditory hallucinations often happen because of failure of self-in monitoring. Normal brain, when you have an inner thought, like thinking you need to go to sleep, your frontal cortex sends out a signal to your auditory cortex saying, heads up, I'm about to say something in your head, in our head. This is just an internal thought. Schizophrenic brain press THC because THC suppresses the frontal cortex and disrupts the communication bridge, the corpus callosum. That heads up signal never arrives, so it's just coming from the air. The confusion. The auditory cortex receives the thought but thinks it came from the outside world. To the person, it doesn't feel like it was a thought. It sounds like a physical voice in the room. Not unlike what we're doing right now, talking. The nightmare of tired but wired. For someone trying to sleep, this creates a terrifying loop. Melatonin would normally quiet the brain. THC instead releases dopamine, which acts like a stimulant in a schizophrenic brain. The frontal cortex logic goes offline, so the person can tell themselves, this is just the drug. The auditory cortex starts hearing internal thoughts as external voices because the internet bridge in between hemispheres is glitching. Key takeaway. While a healthy person might just feel high, a person with schizophrenia using THC to sleep is essentially turning off their brain's ability to distinguish between their own thoughts and reality. This leads to a state of high alert paranoia that is just the exact opposite of rest. This video explains how a link between high-potency THC and psychosis works, which is exactly why it interferes so heavily with the brain's ability to rest in those with schizophrenia.
Cannabis isn't quite what it used to be. It's a lot stronger.
In the 1970s, cannabis potency used to be, 3 or 4%, and now the average is, in the 20s.
A new report in the Canadian Medical Association Journal last week says concentrations of THC, the main psychoactive component of cannabis, is up 5-fold in Canada compared with 20 years ago. Also up, the authors say, is the risk of psychosis for those who use high-potency cannabis frequently.
The higher THC provides, a higher high, but also higher harm. And what we know is that there's an association, a link between high cannabis use and psychosis. People may develop schizophrenia spectrum illness younger if they're using cannabis. And we know that if they have psychosis, it's destabilized by cannabis.
Symptoms, Dr. Buckley says, can range from temporary episodes of paranoia to a dislocation from reality, including seeing or hearing things that are not there.
And it's a real sign, that cannabis isn't a good fit for that person.
Experts find that the risk is higher for people frequently using cannabis with over 10% of THC and for those with a history of mental disorders like depression and anxiety. Younger males also appear to be at higher risk. But while the link is known, causality is not.
Is there a time when people who wouldn't have developed schizophrenia are developing it because of cannabis? So that's what we're looking at now. We're not sure.
Cannabis use also affects different people very differently.
If you look hard, you might see that there's, changes in your relationships or your job or your schoolwork or your health is being impacted. Those are signs that, you might be shifting into a different way of using cannabis that you probably want to avoid.
Nivrita Ganguly, Global News, Toronto.
Sora 2 video generation is not available in our region.
It is if you're on.
Would you like me to explain how CBD interacts with these same receptors differently, or should we look at other natural ways to support the pineal gland? Go ahead and explain CBD. This is where I say I wanted to know, and I'm just going to skip that. Here is the CBD's effects on those two key areas, the frontal cortex, the logic center, and the pineal gland, the sleep center, especially for somebody with schizophrenia. The frontal cortex, the switch is now a dimmer. The negative allosteric modulator. It's supposed to be rheostatic. That's what a dimmer is. It was a rheostat, not an allos. I don't know. It's so weird if they're going to use that term. This is a fancy scientific term for dimmer switch. It's not. It's a rheostat. They should really redo that. CBD doesn't turn, and this is an AI generating this. So I did kind of do my own thing and edit this, but I want to show you how sometimes it can be wrong, and I need you guys to do your own research and not just let it like rule your life. Okay, so here you go. It sits on the side of the receptor and makes it harder for THC to bind to it, fixing the schizophrenia glitch. Because it dims the signal, CBD can actually help the frontal cortex stay online instead of the brain losing its filter and hearing voices. CBD helps the logic center stay in control. There you go. That's what we're gonna want. If we're gonna have to do CBD at night, or we're doing melatonin gummies and CBD at night, and eliminating the nightly ritual. Smoke 2 joints at night. We're not doing that. That's not for people with this. The dopamine, unless the joints are completely low in THC, like leaf, and they're like completely under 10%, then maybe. But that's just bad for your health, and especially at an older age of 50, you shouldn't be smoking in general. So here we go. The dopamine guard. CBD also interacts with dopamine receptors similarly to some modern antipsychopathic psychotic medications. It helps prevent the dopamine flood that causes the racing thoughts and paranoia that keeps someone with schizophrenia wide awake. 2. The pineal gland and the sleep signal. While THC can actually block the enzymes that make melatonin, CBD's relationship with the pineal gland is more supportive, protecting the melatonin cycle. CBD doesn't force the pineal gland to work, but it reduces cortisol, the stress hormone. High cortisol is the enemy of the pineal gland. It tells the gland, don't make melatonin yet, we're in danger. The result, by lowering the alarm bells in the brain, CBD allows the pineal gland to do its job naturally. It doesn't knock you out like a drug, it simply clears the path for your natural melatonin. It can take over, reintroducing you to your natural cycle of circadian rhythm. Comparison THC versus CBD in the brain. Here's a nice little graph for you. A vital note for schizophrenia. Even though CBD often seen as the good one, some recent studies have found a plot twist. In people with schizophrenia who are already using high-potent THC, adding CBD sometimes intensifies the side effects or making memory worse. It's a very delicate balance. The brain is already sensitive, so adding more technicians, CBD, to the system is currently being overrun by THC, can sometimes create more confusion in the brain. So maybe we should just step to melatonin first, and then wean yourself back onto some type of CBD after. Would you like me to find some specific natural ways to support the pineal gland that don't involve cannabis at all? Maybe we should go asking it this, like light therapy or specific, and I actually know ways to do this if you are wondering. Can I see the technicalities between the, it's totally not taking what I'm saying right. So I'm just gonna like click next. I was asking it about its meds and how it works with it. Would you like me to show you the certain floods or habits like caffeine interacts with schizophrenia in a similar way? No, let's just add a thing on there like nicotine and what would that do? So I'm adding that on top of that with the obviously the Zyprexa and the other stuff. And neurologists would look at this and clash between 3 different chemical forces. One that creates chaos, THC, one that acts as a shield for dopamine, Zyprexa, and one that acts as a force to stabilize the brain's electricity depot. 1. The Zyprexa versus THC tug-of-war dopamine. Zyprexa is an atypical antipsychotic. Its main job is to sit on the B2 dopamine receptors like a protective cap, preventing them from overfiring the conflict. THC is a dopamine releaser when a person with schizophrenia. Excuse me. When a person with schizophrenia takes THC, it tries to flood the brain with dopamine to create a high. The reaction. If Zyprexa is doing its job, it blocks the dopamine from landing. This is why many people on Zyprexa report that they don't feel as high from cannabis. However, because THC is so loud, hitting all those CB1 receptors we talked about earlier, they're everywhere, it can sometimes punch through the Zyprexa shield, causing a sudden spike in paranoia or voices despite the medication. 2. The difficult factor. The electrical floor. Depakote is a mood stabilizer that works by increasing GABA, the brain's primary braking chemical. It effectively raises the seizure threshold and prevents the brain's electricity from spiking too high, which causes mania or agitation. THC's interference. THC actually inhibits the release of GABA in certain parts of the brain. How convenient. The result, Depakote is trying to push the brake pedal down, but THC is trying to cut the brake lines. This makes the brain electrically unstable for a schizophrenic person. This instability often manifests as rapid cycling moods or a jolt of anxiety that prevents the pineal gland from ever starting the sleep cycle. 3. The metabolism glitch, the liver and blood. This is technically, many people miss this. Smoking cannabis actually changes how your body handles Zyprexa. The speed up. Compounds in cannabis smoke, not just the THC, trigger the liver to work faster. This can burn off the Zyprexa in your blood up to 30 and 50% times faster than normal. That's like half of it's not even working. The consequence, a person might be taking their prescribed dose of Zyprexa, but because they are smoking THC, the actual amount of medicine reaching their brain is way too low. They are effectively unprotected, leaving the frontal cortex vulnerable to the hemisphere glitch we talked about earlier and the voices we discussed. Here's a little summary in a table. The neurologist's conclusion. If you're on Zyprexa and Depakote, your brain is working very hard to stay level. THC acts like a massive chemical storm that hits the brain from 3 sides. It weakens the medicine, liver metabolism, overrides the shield, dopamine flood, and cuts the brakes. GABA inhibition. This is why for someone with schizophrenia, using THC for sleep often feels like descending into a dream while still awake, aka sleepwalking. The brain is too chemically busy fighting the drug to ever actually rest. 1. The liver vacuum, the smoke effect. This is where most critical technicality here. Hold on. This is the most critical technicality. It's not actually the nicotine itself, but the hydrocarbons in cigarette smoke that cause the problem. Zyprexa, olanzapine, metabolism. Zyprexa is broken down in the liver, which you often are so worried about, but smoking is just as bad. So Zyprexa is broken down in the liver by an enzyme called CYP1A2. The interaction, cigarette smoke makes the enzyme work in overdrive. It effectively sucks the Zyprexa out of your blood before it can even reach your brain. The math. Smokers often need 30 to 50% more Zyprexa. We're talking cigarette smokers, not just weed smokers. So you're doing both, bud. So you're not, all the medication you're taking isn't even doing anything. And even if you're taking the medication, it's not doing anything. So if you're spitting it out, it's going to be even more crazy. So we really got to have you take it so we can understand what you need. We don't know. We're trying to do it with what the doctor's saying because she's reading your lab work, but we're trying to do and understand that if you're telling the truth, this is what the labs say, but when we find stuff on the ground, it's saying a different story, so how can we really trust? So we might just have to do a reset on no weed and no cigarette until we can get this under control. And thus we can be cooperative. The interaction. Cigarette smoke makes the enzyme work in overdrive. Hold on, we already read that. Zyprexa. Here, I'll just redo this one. The math. Smokers often need 30 to 50% more Zyprexa just to get the same effect as a non-smoker. Like I said, we were talking about cigarette smoke. someone smokes a cigarette after taking their meds, they are essentially flushing half of their protection down the drain. The frontal cortex. It's a boost why people smoke. Neurologically, people with schizophrenia often smoke heavily because of something called hypofrontality. Hypofrontality. The frontal cortex, the logic center, is naturally sluggish. That's funny. Oh, I'm sitting here being sluggish on the sentence. Nicotine's role. Nicotine hits alpha-7 receptors in the frontal cortex, which gives the brain a temporary spark of clarity. It helps the left and right hemispheres communicate for a brief moment. The trap. It's a trap. While it feels like it's helping you think, the nicotine is simultaneously causing that liver vacuum effect which weakens the Zyprexa that is supposed to be stopping the voices. It's a temporary fix that causes a long-term disaster. 3. The THC plus nicotine plus Zyprexa triple threat. When you combine all three, your brain becomes a battlefield. Zyprexa is trying to shield your brain, but the cigarette smoke is draining the medicine out of your system. THC is flooding your brain with dopamine, trying to punch through the now weakened Zyprexa shield. Nicotine is giving you a 5-minute clarity boost, followed by a crash that makes the THC paranoia feel even sharper. The nervous system scorecard. Check this out. Write that down for your notes. Why sleep is impossible in the slate. Take 4. Why sleep is impossible in this state. If you smoke a spliff, tobacco mixed with cannabis to go to sleep. Spliff's often a British term. The nicotine raises your heart rate and wakes your cortex up. The smoke drains your Zyprexa, leaving your shield at 50% strength. The THC rushes into and through the weakened shield, triggering the hemisphere glitch we were talking about, and it makes your internal thoughts sound like external voices, aka the glitch, hemisphere glitch, voices. The brain is too busy processing these conflicting signals to ever enter the theta or delta waves needed for deep sleep. This is why many people in this situation feel like they are dreaming while awake or tripping instead of sleeping. Would you like me to look into how much vaping, which has nicotine but no smoke, changes the liver interaction compared to traditional cigarettes? Yes. The de-induction trap. Zyprexa olanzapine. Here is a neurological breakdown of how the vape, 50 milligrams we used, interacts with Zyprexa, Depakote, and THC. I know we stopped it, but there's a reason why you wanted to. This is the most important technicality. Vaping does not have the vacuum cleaner effect of the cigarette smoke. The reason, as we discussed, it's the smoke, hydrocarbons, from the fire that spreads up your liver, speeds up your liver. Vaping has no fire. So unless you're burning there's cotton inside there, which you could be burning if you hold on to the button too long, but it's not talking about that. If you're doing everything normally, vaping has no fire. So your liver slows back down to normal. The risk, if you're smoking cigarettes and then switched to a 50 milligram vape, and you didn't even switch, bro, you were doing it all, your Zyprexa levels in your blood will suddenly shoot up by 30 to 50%, almost giving you a mini, and here's the result. You might suddenly feel extremely groggy, dizzy, or zombie-like because it's like we were saying, stroke. Because you are essentially getting a massive overdose of your own medicine without changing your pill count. So if you do start picking up back your pills, you see what I mean? Why you just need to keep being more consistent? It makes everything more difficult, including on yourself. So don't do it. 2, here we go. The 50 milligrams nicotine super spark. A 50 milligram nicotine salt vape is an incredibly high dose, often called 5% in pods. in the brain, while a cigarette gives you a slow rise and a 50 milligram vape hits the alpha 7 nicotine receptors in your frontal cortex like a lightning bolt. The schizophrenic fix, for 10 minutes your brain feels clear. It fixes the sluggishness of schizophrenia temporarily. The crash, because the dose is so high, it causes a massive release of adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes, and your fight or flight system turns on. This directly blocks the pineal gland from releasing melatonin, making sleep nearly impossible. That's why when we left the vape out there, he never slept, and it turned into this. 3. The THC in the vape plus Depakote collision. When you add THC Depakote into this, you create the electrical storm. Depakote is trying to keep your brain's electricity low and stable on the floor, like we described earlier. THC is making the internal internet, corpus callosum, glitchy and disorganized. 50 milligrams of nicotine is acting like a massive stimulant, jacking the brain's volume way up in terms of we're not going to get any sleep from this. Neurological note. When you combine high doses of nicotine vaping with THC, you're essentially speedballing your internal thoughts. The nicotine makes those thoughts faster and sharper, while the THC makes those thoughts externalize into voices, so he's hearing them. You know what I mean? Comparison: smoking versus vaping with Zyprexa. Here's your scorecards. In case you're keeping count and you want to do index cards later, people. It's a good way to keep track of this information. Summary for sleep. If you're trying to sleep and you use the vape plus THC, you're creating a chemical paradox. This is what I was trying to say in the last slide. But here's the summary. Your Zyprexa is now at a higher level, making you feel heavy and tired. But your nicotine and THC have jacked you up, adrenaline and dopamine, making your mind race. You end up in a state of heavy paralysis, where your body feels like lead because of Zyprexa, but your mind is screaming with voices and racing thoughts because of high doses of nicotine and THC. Would you like me to draft a note that you can show your doctor about switching to vaping so they can adjust your Zyprexa dose safely? And I counteract this saying that you quit it, and that to just add the cigarettes into the equation back. The liver equation, the Zyprexa burn-off. Senecas and clippers, I get a little bit more detailed so you understand, are heavily tobacco products. Clippers are filtered cigars, often contain even higher levels of hydrocarbons that trigger liver enzymes than standard cigarettes. The reaction. The liver is now hyperdrive. It treats the Zyprexa like a toxin that needs to be cleared out immediately. The result, even if the person takes the Zyprexa exactly as prescribed, the combination of Seneca and clipper smoke can drop the amount of medicine in their blood by 50 or more. The unprotected brain. The person is essentially walking around with half of a dose of antipsychotic medication, leaving their frontal cortex completely vulnerable to the actual hallucination effect. 2. The receptor equation. The adrenaline overload. Hello. Hello. Girls.
That's Boom Boom barking. Obviously Anastasia too, but there was Boom Boom barking there.
Take 5. The receptors equation. The adrenaline overload. Adding 50 milligram nicotine salts to vape on top of cigarettes. And the cigars is like pouring jet fuel onto a campfire, my dude. Nicotine stacking. The Senecas and clippers provide a slow burn of nicotine that stays in the blood. The 50 milligram vape provides shocks of extreme nicotine, adrenal, and the pineal gland. The massive amount of nicotine triggers a constant release of norepinephrine, adrenaline. I totally butchered that, but I'm not going to try to sit there and redo that. The sleep block, adrenaline, is the anti-melatonin. So, I mean, if you're going to sit there and say you're not sleeping and you have this adrenaline stuff and you're having bad dreams, well, this is why, my dude. This is why. The massive amount of nicotine triggers a constant release of adrenaline. So, as long as the 50 milligram salt and Seneca smoke are in the system, the pineal gland is chemically blocked. It cannot release the signal to sleep because the brain thinks it's in a life or death state. The THC component, the hallucination trigger, now add the THC to a brain where Zyprexa is being burned off by the Senecas and the adrenaline is spiked by a vape. The glitch is magnified, as I'm talking about voices, because the Zyprexa shield is so low due to smoke, the THC has a clear path to the dopamine receptors. The voices, the nicotine from the clipper vape, makes thoughts move faster, and the THC makes the corpus callosum, the bridge, glitch and hear voices. The experience, the person isn't just high, they're likely experiencing active psychosis, hearing voices that feel 100% real because there isn't enough Zyprexa left in their blood to mute them. The final chemical equation. Here's some more for your cards. We'll just follow it this way. The resulting state, toxic wakefulness. The person is in a state where the body is physically exhausted, but the brain is chemically preventing from shutting down. They are too stimulated to sleep. Nicotine and adrenaline. They are too unprotected to be calm. Low Zyprexa. They are too disconnected from reality. To rest. THC. The voices. Important. If this person stops smoking the Seneca's clippers but keeps vaping, the Zyprexa levels will skyrocket because their liver vacuum stopped. This can lead to extreme toxicity, fainting, slowed heart rate, severe confusion. Would you like me to explain how they can safely transition away from smoke without causing a Zyprexa overdose in their system? Okay, so if this goes, and again, so like I said, this is completely butchering what I said. So we're just going to skip it and see where it goes. Statistically, the average life expectancy for somebody, oh yeah, that's what I was going to do. Like, how hard is it for your heart to do all this, right? So this is what I'm trying to say. It's probably not smart, right? Then you might even be giving yourself a hole in your heart, like a heart murmur, bro. Somebody with schizophrenia is about 15 to 20 years shorter than general population. If a person is currently 50, a neurologist and a cardiologist would be looking at 4 specific clocks that are running normal, faster than normal. 4 clocks. You got 4 things inside of you that are supposedly, running overtime, and you're telling me that that's good? The metabolic clock, the meds. You're taking Zyprexa and Depakote. It's very hard on the body's metabolism. Insulin resistance. Both drugs are not notorious for causing weight gain and metabolic syndrome. After 15 years or so, in some cases, the risk of type 2 diabetes is extremely high. Organ stress, Depakote, is processed by the liver and can be tough on the pancreas. Zyprexa can lead to a high cholesterol and fatty liver. The result, by age 50, the body may physically feel like it's 65 or 70 due to the long-term metabolic strain. 2. Cardiovascular clog. The smoke and vape. This is the biggest risk factor for lifespan. The combination of Seneca clipper smoke and the vape salt creates a constant state of vascular tension. Arteries, nicotine and smoke that cause the arteries to stiffen and narrow. Heart strain. Because the nicotine is so high, stacking cigarettes plus the vape, the heart is likely beating much faster and harder than it would 24/7. The math, schizophrenia and heavy smoking plus metabolic meds creates a 3 times to 4 times higher risk of cardiovascular event, heart attack. So you're basically 4 times likely to have a heart attack doing what you were doing just a couple months ago. This is why we're asking, did you have a stroke? We're not trying to be like, a jerk, but we are watching you do this to yourself, and we are being concerned, so we'd be in the wrong if we didn't say anything, right? Right. Heart attack or stroke by the time reaches their 50s or 60s. 3 times to 4 times higher risk of cardiovascular event, heart attack, or stroke by the time a person reaches their 50s or 60s. The neurological clock, the THC. Using THC for 15 plus years alongside these meds doesn't necessarily kill you, but it ages the brain's cognitive ability. Gray matter, long-term, high-dose THC in schizophrenic people is associated with a faster thinning of gray matter in the brain. Cognitive fatigue, the consistent chemical tug-of-war, meds trying to quiet the brain while THC nicotine tries to wake it up, leads to profound brain fog, memory loss, and the person enters their 50s. 4. The liver burnout. After 15 years of smoking Senecas, the liver have been in overdrive trying to clear the smoke toxins in Zyprexa. As a person hits 50, the liver naturally slows down. If the person suddenly stops smoking but keeps taking the same dose of Zyprexa, the medicine can suddenly become toxic because their liver can no longer vacuum it out. This can cause the heart rate to drop dangerously low. Expected lifespan. What the data says for a person in this specific situation, like schizophrenia plus all the stuff I said in the last slide, you're in a danger zone. It's typically between ages of 55 and 65. Most common causes of death is not the mental illness itself, but cardiovascular disease, heart failure, or respiratory failure, COPD, lung issues. The good news is research shows that if a person can even reduce the consumable smoke, the Senecas and clippers, or move towards just vaping or patches, the liver vacuum stops, the heart strain stops, and they can add 5 to 10 years back onto the life expectancy almost immediately. Here's some slides to take down. Alright, we're getting into the end of the video here, folks. I hope you liked it. If you like it, please like and subscribe, and there'll be more content out that piques interest. Would you like me to look into specific warning signs of Zyprexa toxicity so you know what to look for in the smoke habits change? You can redo this without the nicotine vape thing because he quit, and add in there that he has somebody that comes over from overseas and likes a celebratory drink with him, but he is on medication and he likes to sneak drinking in with this. Let's show how bad this is with the medication, and it says that he can't drink on, and you can explain this to all of us. When we remove the vape but add alcohol, explicitly celebratory or heavy drinking, into a system that already has Zyprexa, Depakote, THC, and heavy tobacco smoke, Senecas, and clippers, we move from a state of chemical chaos into a state of controversial nervous system failure, CNS. Why we found you like laying on the side behind the tattoo shop or whatever. Ralph doesn't talk to you because he thought you were dead, bro. We thought you died. Here is the neurological equation for why sneaking drinks on these specific medications is so dangerous and why we wanted to go talk to Jens. Respiratory depression, trap alcohol plus Zyprexa. Both alcohol and Zyprexa are CNS depressants. We were talking about that earlier, the central nervous system. Here we go. So they are central nervous system depressants. They both tell the brain to slow down, but they do it in different ways. The interaction. When they are combined, they don't just add together 1 plus 1 equals 2. They multiply each other. 1 times 1 equals 5. Okay, yeah, that's good. When is that ever okay? The risk. This combination can slow down the autonomic part of the brain, the part that tells your lungs to breathe when you sleep, because the person is over 50 and has been on meds for 15 years. Their breathing drive is already less resilient. The sneak danger. If he is sneaking drinks, his doctor and his guests don't know this. The central nervous system is being suppressed. He could fall asleep and simply stop breathing. Respiratory arrest. 2. The liver and ammonia risk. alcohol, and Depakote. This is a very technical but vital point for somebody on Depakote. The liver's job, Depakote is processed by the liver. Alcohol is a liver toxin. So those two combined are obviously two negatives. Are not going to make a positive there. The conflict, when he drinks, the liver prioritizes the alcohol. This causes Depakote levels to fluctuate wildly. The toxic result, Depakote can sometimes cause a buildup of ammonia in the blood. Alcohol makes this much more likely. High ammonia levels in the brain cause encephalopathy, a state of extreme confusion, tremors, and even coma. Do you want to be in a coma, bro? No one wants to be in a coma, right? And Anastasia doesn't want to be in a coma. In a person with schizophrenia, this toxic confusion can look like a psychotic break, but it's actually the liver failing to clean the blood. 3. The liver vacuum conflict. The Seneca smoke factor. Remember, he is still smoking Senecas and Clippers, the vacuum. The smoke is still vacuuming the Zyprexa out of his blood. The alcohol twist. Alcohol also affects liver enzymes, which the smoke speeds the liver up. Heavy drinking eventually exhausts the liver and cause it to slow down. The result, his Zyprexa levels will be so yo-yoing. 1 hour, the medicine is too low, leading to voice hallucinations, and the next hour, because of the alcohol, the medicine is too high, leading to extreme sedation and him passing out. 4. The celebratory psychological trigger. When a guest comes from overseas, the celebratory nature usually involves lowered inhibitions, alcohol shutdowns the frontal cortex, CEO. The THC loop. Once the CEO is drunk, the person is more likely to use more THC. The voices return. Alcohol plus THC plus low Zyprexa from smoke. A high probability of psychological episode during the celebration. And has not been what's happening, Evan. Here is literally was like corresponded since your birthday. And continuing because we are proactively giving you double types of cigarettes and are just negating any effects we are doing. This is why when you're in a hospital, they don't give you cigarettes, brother. They don't give you weed. Even though it's legal and you have a medical card, they won't give it to you. Because it won't work. The neurologist's warning. For a man over 50 who has been on these meds for 15 years, sneaking drinks is a silent killer. Because his body is already working overtime to handle the Depakote and Senecas, the alcohol acts like a final straw for the liver and the heart. He might feel like he is just having a good time with his guests, but internally his brain is struggling to stay awake while the drugs and alcohol are fighting to shut his system down. And that's all, folks. So, thanks I will not say any names, but to who this may concern, I really do consider this a warning. I don't want to ever have to say I told you so, ever, but I do consider this to be a warning to anybody who is considering doing a binge on any type of drug and they're doing anything like antipsychotics, and how this is completely just not what they need. So thank you for supporting this channel and the search for truth and everything along the way, guys. Have a great rest of your day. And if this is night, have a great night. Goodbye. Oh, babe, come over here and say goodbye.
Oh, I'm not on video.
No.
Okay, goodbye. Thanks for joining the stream.
Come here and try that one more time. I couldn't see.
It's not
I
a
couldn't.
stream.
Yeah. Oh,
Thanks
got that.
for watching.
You watch the bar here and make sure this is over here when you're talking.
Okay. Where? Over there.
See the black bar? How my voice is all the way up here?
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Goodbye. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.
Encephalopathy. No, encephalopathy. This is like.
Encephalitis? No, that has to do.
Yeah, encephalopathy. Yeah, encephalopathy. Yeah, that was, thanks, hon. I would not have been able to figure. Yeah, it's a double PH, and I got the tongue and my broken tooth, and then okay. Take 3. Oh, I'm sorry, we're at 6. Take 6. The toxic result. Difficult can sometimes cause a buildup of ammonia in the blood. Alcohol makes this much more likely. High ammonia levels in the brain cause encephalopathy. And so that word right there, Or are you gonna read it? Because I'm gonna have to do take 7 or take 6.5.
Encephalopathy.
Encephalopathy? I can't say that. Smiling? I can't smile and say that.
I messed up.
How am I supposed to say that?
Encephalopathy.
You say that to the mic right now. And I'm gonna edit it in.
It's either encephalopathy or encephalopathy. Encephalopathy. I mean, that's either one.
Take what she said.
But I think it has to do with the brain.
It's ammonia in the blood, and it's talking about high ammonia levels in the brain cause this. What she said, folks. I have no idea. We only got a few more slides left here. We're probably going to do a part 2 on this, and we'll talk more about the risks about this and that, but this is more educational purposes. All right, so here's a.
Let's go to Tom Fitton, head of Judicial Watch. And Tom, it's great to have you back on the show. Last time we were talking about all the
That was way too loud.
folks on the voter rolls. They had some stunning numbers. You guys do such great work. And now you are what? Suing the CIA. Explain it.
We're always suing the CIA.
Well, how about this week? What are you suing them for this week?
Hold on a second. I was prepared to talk about voter rolls again.
Well, what about the Brennan? Well, hey, by the way, do you have an update on the voter rolls? Go to that first if you got it.
We just sued California because there are 873,000 names that are dirty on the list. They've had names going back as long as 10 years on the list, dirty names. And the challenge is they're not cleaning the names as they're supposed to. So that means you get people who move away and almost assuredly start receiving ballots at their former addresses.
Wow. Do we know where in California, by the way, Tom? Because, boy, is that relevant, especially given what happened, the primary, and we're waiting for results.
Well, when you're talking nearly 1 million names, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And so it's a statewide issue. It's at least 873,000. When all is said and done, it's going to be.
It's everywhere. I told you. Sorry.
Because they are not.
I'm not sorry though.
What they're doing as they come as they're supposed to. It's a simple process. Hey, if you don't vote, they send you a card. And if you don't respond to the card or don't vote for 2 federal election cycles, so this is a few years, they remove your name. They're not even doing that.
Wow. Now, what about when you talk about they don't remove? Are they dead people? Are there evidence of people voting twice?
Well, it's hard to know because if someone is getting a mail-in ballot and voting in someone else's name, there's no way to figure that out.
There's more than that.
And
felons, they don't take the felons off the ballot box. They don't do a lot of extra shit.
The mail-in ballots make it nearly
cross-state voting. They don't
to
check in other states' voting elections to see if they're cross-states.
It's a disaster in that regard. And on top of things, the whole system is undermined by counting ballots forever and a day. And so the big news that your listeners should be watching for is the Supreme Court. We expect to rule any minute now in terms of before the end of the month. Whether or not states can count ballots that arrive late. In California, they arrive for up to 7 days after Election Day, and they still get counted. And the court may end that like that.
Wow. And when could we potentially hear on that? And could that affect, by the way, if this decision, I'm looking at Judge Weinberg who's here, if that decision came down, would it be retroactive to this election or it only goes forward?
It should be applicable.
It should be applicable. That would be amazing.
Depending on what the ruling says, it could be applicable to the next federal election, which is November.
Right. They should. And that's the right thing to do.
Right. Those are federal elections. That's why I just want. I'm making it. That's where I'm asking.
There's an argument that the primaries aren't covered, but it's certainly going to make it harder for states to count ballots. As I say, forever and a day. Election day needs to mean something if you want people to have confidence in the elections.
Tom is absolutely right.
Tom, that is stunning. Now, before we let you go real quick, is California aware that they have 873,000 that shouldn't be on the voter rolls?
Oh, they gave us the numbers. So you betcha.
And they have done nothing to clean it up as far as you know.
No, they're fighting us. Obviously, we sued.
100%.
And hopefully we're able to get them to see reason. I mean, in Oregon, a left-wing state, they cleaned 800,000 names as a result of the settlement. Up in New York, your voting rolls, they cleaned almost 1 million names from thanks to a settlement with Judicial Watch. So it's just because they're blue doesn't mean they won't settle and do something that no normal person would object to, which is if someone moves away from the state and you know about it, remove them from the rolls.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Well, Tom, here's what you have to do. You have to come back on again so we can talk about the CIA stuff, okay?
Oh, yeah, I figured out there's like 3 lawsuits we filed.
All right, good. All right, so we'll talk about all 3 very soon. How's that?
Thank you, Tom.
Tom, we love you. Thank you very, very much.
And we have Chad Bianco on the stage. There he is, and he's going to address his supporters here 7 minutes after the polls close. Let's listen.
Thank you all very much. So I want to thank you all for coming tonight. You are all we're behind us. Batteries. You are either behind us financially, spiritually, personally, helping, whatever it was, to make a better California. And you have absolutely, I cannot express enough from the bottom of my heart for all of you. So thank you all. From the very beginning, I made this decision for this one. For all of your kids, for all of your grandkids that do not have the opportunity that we had when we were this age.
Why does it sound like he's in an auditorium with no mic on?
It's not because of any of you, it's not because of any of your businesses, it's because of an absolute failed political agenda in California. And there's only one way to fix that, and that is to absolutely disrupt and destroy this agenda in Sacramento that is ruining our lives. I made the decision to sacrifice my family.
All of our lives, across the board. Red, blue, black, white, Asian, all of them. Every single life.
There's nothing I love more than my sheriff's office. And it was a sacrifice to make sure that I did everything I could to travel the state for the last 16 months to make sure that I make a better life for all of you in California. And I think we did everything we could to make
None of this stuff ties in with ancient or old traditional values.
in my personal life, you were all a part of this, so I appreciate it. We've done everything we could to make sure that we made California dream an attainable thing again, and we're going to keep this going. The polls are closed. We're now waiting for that stupid screen to update.
3 days ago this played.
So unfortunately, I'm going to have to admit that you put me too far away from the screens, and in my head, I'm 21 years old, in my body, I'm not, and I can't see that far. Very good. All right. So this is what we have from here on out. There's going to be 30 days of counting ballots. These ballots are the turning ballots that we've had so far. We have a long ways to go. It obviously looks like it's pretty darn close. And I'm telling you right now, we're in a very, very, very good spot because strategically in our campaign, we knew that it was going to come down to voting day because our voters are on voting day. We don't believe in polls. We don't believe in mail-in ballots. And we show up to the polls and we make sure that we're going to choose who our next governor is going to be. So I'm going to rush from one side or the other to make sure I can actually see those numbers. I'm just seeing generalities. But I just want you all to know that how appreciative I am. It's going to be a long night. It's going to be a long day tomorrow. And it's going to be a long couple of weeks. But I appreciate your effort that you have done to make sure that California is great again. Make sure that we have the life that we all know, that we all remember is attainable again. And I can't even express how appreciative I am. And the bottom line is this. No matter what the outcome is, I'm either going to be your next governor or I'm still going to be your sheriff.
Listening live to Chad Bianco.
Next news, breaking news.
Right now, the real story out of California is not just who wins, it's whether Americans can trust a system that takes weeks to tell them what happened on Election Day. While ballots keep trickling in, margins keep moving, and another so-called ballot dump lands after election night. The public is asking the most basic question. Why does this keep happening? And just as that anger boils over, the Supreme Court is preparing to weigh in on late ballot counting in a case that could hit states like California right where it hurts. If that ruling lands hard, election month may be living on borrowed time. And here's why this matters. In a healthy republic, the count is supposed to confirm the result, not become the result. But in California, the counting process itself has turned into the headline. According to reports, millions of mail-in ballots remained uncounted. Los Angeles County was still processing huge batches, and late counted ballots were once again shifting margins in ways that predictably favored Democrats. Whether every ballot is legal or not, that's not the only issue anymore. The issue is public confidence. Because when people watch vote totals move for days, then weeks, while officials insist everyone should just be patient, trust starts collapsing. Steve Hilton said what millions are thinking. If Florida can count fast, if India can count hundreds of millions in a day, why is California dragging this out for 35 days? The answer voters keep getting is bureaucracy, excuses, and process. And President Trump and Republicans have been clear: speed, transparency, voter ID, proof of citizenship, and rules that actually mean something. And without that, suspicion grows and the system loses legitimacy in the eyes of the public. Speaking of systems designed to confuse ordinary Americans, there's another one hitting seniors right in the wallet. So pay attention to this, because if you or someone in your family is on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. See, Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials, it's all meant to keep you overwhelmed, so you pick a plan and never look at it again. That is the Medicare confusion industrial complex. And seniors are paying for it without even knowing it. You see, Chapter is simple by design. One call, one advisor, They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, and your pharmacies, and then compare plans to help you find the right fit. Some seniors could save as much as $1,100 a year. So don't guess. Don't get pressured. Get real help from Chapter. Call the number you see on your screen, 910-728-4109 today, and make sure you're not overpaying for coverage that you don't even want. Now back to the election system. Americans are already being told not to question. Because here's the twist. This is no longer just a California embarrassment. It may become the national test case. The Supreme Court case out of Mississippi is now hanging over the entire debate on postmarked ballots, grace periods, and whether states can keep counting long after Election Day. If the justices slam the brakes on late arriving ballots, California's bloated system could suddenly face a legal reckoning. At the same time, Republicans in Washington are showing that they're one rule change away from passing tougher election protections right now. Trump Daily Post making it clear the Supreme Court is about to drop a massive ruling on mail-in ballots, which could affect California counting. The case could strike down election month and late ballot counting in multiple states. Yes, this is huge.
The interesting thing is that there is a Supreme Court case pending right now. The court's already heard it. We're waiting at this end of the term in June. We get all of these last decisions, the big ones. This one came out of Mississippi, and it deals with a state law that says how long you can count ballots after Election Day, if they're postmarked, what the grace period is there. So I can't wait. We're going to get opinions next Thursday. Maybe that's in the pile, but it's certainly something that could, you know, be a big resounding ripple effect across the country based on what they decide in Mississippi.
Yeah, you know, this all changed during COVID. And California changed, like they were on steroids, the way they were changing their election laws in 2001, just extending the grace period that they were giving so many people. And it's led to this. And, you know, Shannon, it's flown under the radar, because we've been focused on national elections 2 years ago and the midterms 2 years before that. But California, like determining the balance of power in the House, we've been waiting on California for 4 years now. And yet again, we've got this one. Meanwhile, in the Senate.
So the justice may be weighing in on a ruling with real consequences for states like California. Now Steve Hilton unloads the 35-day count, comparing it to Florida, even India, to show just how broken the system is. Trump Daily Post making it clear. Let me see. Is this the same clip?
The interesting thing is that there is a Supreme Court case pending right now. The court's already.
The same clip. I think I've got it. Okay, here it is. Steve Hilton erupts on California's mail-in ballots, saying India counts 640 million ballots in a day.
In November. Now let's get to this absolute shambles of an election count. It's actually way worse than the president just mentioned. It's not 6 or 7 or 8 days. Here's from the Secretary of State's website today, 35 days.
Oh!
That's the plan, 35 days. This is an absolute shambles, a humiliation for California. It is making our state a laughing stock here in America and around the world. We have less than 10 million votes cast in this election in California, and it's going to take them a month to count them. India, 640 million. They do it in a day. States here in America, look at Florida, how quickly they get their count out. Within hours, same sort of numbers. They have early voting too. They have mail-in voting too, but they can do it in an hour. Here it takes a month. It is an absolutely inexcusable, calamitous catastrophe of incompetence from the same crew who bought you high-speed rail. Yes. Now it's snail's pace elections. It's not good enough.
Steve.
And today, David, I'm laying out a plan to change this, election count accelerator plan. Straight after this interview, I'll be going to a press conference to lay that out.
So he calls it a humiliation, and he's right. When counting takes weeks, trust collapses and the swamp cashes in. Next, President Trump lays out the fix, the Save America Act, with voter ID and proof of citizenship front and center.
So the Save America Act is all voters must show photo ID. So you go to vote and you show photo ID. Not complicated, right? You know, who could oppose it? They say it's an 80-20. It's not. It's about 99-1, and we'll never find the one person. Andy, congratulations, Andy, on a big victory.
Thank you for your help.
That's great. I appreciate it, but You're very good at what you do, and I've been backing you right from the beginning for a long time, right?
Backing you too, sir.
For years, that's right, you have. Thank you. Congratulations. You won a big election. So you have all voters must show photo ID, identification. All voters must show a little thing called proof of citizenship. Would you say that's 99-1, Mr. Pennsylvania?
I would say that's maybe 100 to 0.
I would think so. They say
At least it should be.
No, but they say it's 80-20. It's not 80-20. It's 99. And we've never found the one person. There's another one. Then you have no mail-in ballots, but we want to be liberal, as they say. Or we'll say we want to be progressive. So it's no mail-in ballots. You see that's what's happening in California. They're rigging the election. Now, maybe we caught them, and maybe they won't be able to get away with it. They tried with me. They did it successfully the second time. The third time, we made it too big to rig. Too many votes. They couldn't do it. They can only go. They sort of gave up at about 9:07 when they got slaughtered with the votes that came in. But no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. So we're being very progressive. And we just don't want cheating in our elections. And you see it happening in California. Those numbers are coming down rapidly. They found a lot of mail-in ballots last night, shockingly. So we don't want that. Then we added best of. This is best of Trump. No men in women's sports. No transgender mutilization surgery for our children. I would say that's pretty close to 99-1 also. No men in women's sports. I would say that's pretty good. We had the quarterback, Jackson, is the quarterback for the Giants. He's a big, strong guy. And I said, how do you think you do in women's sports, Jackson? He said, pretty good, sir. He didn't know I was joking. He was not worried, let me put it that way. He would have been the greatest athlete in the history of women's sports. You got to see the size of this guy. Like a male model, and he's going to be a great quarterback. So we talk about that. And so we just would like the Senate, Democrats, Republicans to pass it.
So Trump's message is simple. Secure the vote, shut down the cheating loopholes. Now look at what's happening in Los Angeles, where another late ballot drop is moving Democrat numbers and raising fresh red flags.
We are at LA County's massive processing center. This is the location where all of the ballots are supposed to be shipped and counted. And in the latest ballot dump, LA County says it processed 81,000 votes since the first big election night numbers, but there's still 688,000 to go. Karen Bass is strengthening her lead, picking up about 12,000 votes yesterday. Spencer Pratt added about 6,000 and remains in second. Third place, Nithya Raman added nearly 11,000 votes, eating away at Pratt's lead. Now, in the governor's race, an estimated 60% of the vote is processed. Republican Steve Hilton remains number one. Democrat Javier Becerra picked up 158,000 votes and is closing in on Hilton within about 1 percentage point. Democrat Tom Steyer in third. Now, the most recent mail-in ballots that were processed are favoring Democrats, as many analysts suggested they would. Inside the ballot processing center here in LA County, any ballot that was postmarked by Election Day Tuesday must be counted by law. The process takes so long in part because each ballot must have its signature verified, and if there's an issue, there's a 10-day period to have it cured. California's Secretary of State is defending it all, writing, accuracy comes before speed. California is the nation's largest voting state with millions of ballots to process and count. Taking the time to do this work correctly protects voters' rights and ensures the integrity of our election. Now, the state of California.
Yeah, sure. So after watching the ballot totals keep shifting, it's no wonder America wants hard safeguards in place. Now the Senate proves the fight is real. Mike Lee forces a Save America Act vote, and it lands at 50. This break-in overnight, Save America Act got 50 votes thanks to Senator Susan Collins voting in favor of Mike Lee's amendment. They just proved it can get 51 votes with J.D. Vance as the tiebreaker. This version of the bill still contains voter ID and proof of citizenship, but it needed 60. So no more excuses. Nuke the filibuster. Lee says this is the House-passed version of Save America, which still secures our election to a very strong degree. So, what does it all really mean? It means that the fight is no longer just about access, it's about credibility. Democrats built a vote-by-mail machine during COVID. In states like California, well, they never want to give it up. The result is exactly what Americans see now: endless counting, shifting margins, and a public that feels locked out of the process. That's why the Supreme Court case matters. That's why the Save America Act matters, and that is why President Trump's America First movement is winning the argument. In the Senate, Republicans just proved voter ID and proof of citizenship can get 50 votes, with Vice President J.D. Vance available as a tiebreaker. The path is there. The only thing standing in the way is the Senate filibuster and the usual establishment excuses. So the bottom line is very simple. If your election system takes a month to count fewer than 10 million votes, people are going to doubt it. That's not irrational. That's common sense. Confidence is earned through clear rules, fast reporting, secure ballots, voter ID, and transparency from start to finish. California has become the symbol of what happens when government puts process above credibility, and now the country is watching. The good news is this, that under President Trump, Republicans are no longer pretending this is normal. They are pushing fixes. They are exposing the mess, and if the Supreme Court delivers a strong ruling on ballot deadlines, this whole rotten election month model could start collapsing. So here's my question for you. Should every state be required to finish counting by Election Day, yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments and share this report with someone who still thinks 35-day counting is acceptable. If you want more unapologetic America First coverage, subscribe to the Next News Network right now. But more importantly, go ahead and text that word, raw feed, those words, to 844-840-4963. I'm done with it. I'm so fed up with it. I'm cutting out the middleman. I'm cutting out YouTube directly.
On June 4th, 2026, the 37th anniversary of the June 4th Tiananmen Square massacre, extreme weather hit parts of Beijing, Hebei, and Tianjin. Strong winds, heavy rain, and dense hail fell at the same time. In many areas, the ground was quickly covered with hail, looking like snow from a distance. Leaves were smashed off trees, car windshields were shattered, trees were knocked down, and crops were badly damaged. Online users called it once in a century and said it felt like a curse. One woman said, "Look at the huge hail in Guan, everyone. I'm 40 years old, and this is the first time I've seen hail this big. It's terrifying."
Oh my god, someone could get killed by this. Where's my car? This guy is crazy. Did you see him? He never imagined riding an e-bike in shorts while it's snowing. This weather is insane. Hail just came out of nowhere and hit me hard. Look at this hail, it's huge. Heavy wind and rain. Hail the size of eggs. What is this weather trying to do? It was sunny just a moment ago. Now there's a storm. Hail is all over the ground, and I'm soaked.
On the afternoon of June 4th, Guan County in Langfang, Hebei, saw a sudden hailstorm lasting about 30 minutes. Residents reported hail up to 10 centimeters thick in some spots. Many cars were dented, and some repair shops received numerous inquiries about invisible dent repairs. The Central Meteorological Observatory reported that wind speeds in parts of Hebei reached above level 11. E-bikes in motion were almost hit by falling water heaters, umbrellas were damaged by strong winds, and outdoor theater tents were torn apart. A woman remarked, "It really is a natural disaster. It's harvest time for wheat, and hail falls. The leaves are almost gone, and the ground is covered."
Is this ever going to stop? It's been 10, 15 minutes, and hail is everywhere. Aren't all these cars going to get smashed? I haven't seen weather like this in years. Look at this hail, it's denting everything. The Maybach got hit, what a loss. 2 rims just fell off the car from one hailstorm.
Videos from Guan County residents showed the hail hitting the ground like firecrackers, bouncing on the pavement. Soon, the streets were covered with a layer of white, with rain and hail mixing in streams along the roads. The storm lasted nearly half an hour. On June 5th, one user described escaping the hail. "Before I got home last night, the clouds already looked strange. I just drove through my community gate, my car barely in, and hail the size of ping pong balls started falling. At first, I thought something hit my car's rear, but when I drove past the gate, the whole car felt like it was submerged. Visibility was under 3 meters. Opening the garage felt like swimming." People across China shared videos. Rare giant hail, location Guan. Suddenly, hail shattered the normal day. I've never seen streets completely covered in ice like this. In Langfang, Hebei, around 11 a.m. on June 4th, a sudden storm of wind, rain, and hail the size of eggs lasted 20 minutes. Temperatures plunged from 30 degrees Celsius instantly. Online users said, unusual weather always has a reason. The Hebei Meteorological Observatory issued warnings for Baoding, Xiong'an New Area, Langfang, Shijiazhuang, Hengshui, and Xingtai, as these areas could face hail in the coming hours. Overseas, social media users posted videos, writing that the hail in Langfang, Hebei, seemed to be crying out for the people who died 37 years ago. In Xingtai, Hebei, hail was so heavy it stripped leaves from trees, leaving streets covered in ice and foliage. Meanwhile, Beijing also experienced hailstorms. Reports said that on June 4th, Fangshan, Daxing, Tongzhou, Changping, Pinggu, Miyun, and Xunyi issued warnings for hail, strong winds, and lightning. Around 4 p.m. that afternoon, strong winds and heavy hail hit many parts of Beijing. In just a few minutes, the ground was covered with a thick layer of white ice pellets. Officials said the hail reached up to 2 centimeters in diameter, about the size of gumballs. But videos from residents showed some hailstones twice that size. Users in Beijing posted clips showing hail smashing into the streets with a loud patter, damaging cars and rooftops. On June 5th, Jinan and Shandong also faced hailstorms. Roads were instantly blanketed in dense ice, forming what looked like icy rivers. Some hailstones were as large as eggs. A newlywed couple in Jinan rented several Rolls-Royces for their wedding procession, only to have the hail damage the car's paint. Multiple videos showed heavy rain mixed with dense hail hitting the ground, destroying crops and breaking car windows.
Look at these cars. Imagine the hail in Jinan. Cars got smashed completely.
One user wrote that around 8:30 in the morning, a sudden hailstorm hit parts of Jinan for 5 or 6 minutes, accompanied by fierce winds. Within a couple of hours, the rain stopped and skies cleared, making it feel like a brief summer dream, here one moment, gone the next. Many online users reacted. Extreme weather keeps happening more often. Is this some kind of curse? Snow in June. So strange. One moment, Hebei is over 30 degrees Celsius. The next, it feels like winter. You'd think it was snowing in Guan. The hail there dwarfed what fell in Tianjin just now. Others commented, Beijing got it too. The crops are ruined. Some videos were shared on X, where users wrote, on June 4th, there was injustice. When will that breeze of freedom ever blow across this land of suffering? While extreme weather is naturally occurring, its timing on June 4th quickly gave it symbolic meaning. Commentators from inside and outside of China remarked, June 4th brings injustice. Heaven is angry. People are outraged. They questioned, coincidence or warning from above? The Chinese phrase, heaven is angry, people are outraged, was often mentioned, suggesting that nature's wrath and the people's resentment may reflect the true challenges facing the current Chinese Communist Party. Exactly 37 years ago in Beijing, just 50 kilometers from Guan, Hebei, the world witnessed the Tiananmen Square massacre. In the early hours of June 4, 1989, the Chinese Communist Party deployed the military and armed police to forcibly suppress students and citizens demanding democracy. Civilian estimates put the death toll in the thousands. This bloody crackdown shocked the world and is known internationally as the Tiananmen Square massacre. Within China, the topic remains taboo. No textbooks, TV programs, or memorials acknowledge it. Countless families lost loved ones, and survivors, participants, and their relatives have endured long-term pressures. Commemorations are banned. This hailstorm and unusual weather may have been natural events, but on the June 4th anniversary, they stirred strong public resonance. On the 37th anniversary, Chinese platforms strictly censored even subtle references to June 4th. Many users complained about heightened monitoring on social media and chat groups, with ordinary words, images, likes, and exercise records filtered. Some described the network censorship as bordering on madness. On the eve of the anniversary, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a statement to China. No amount of censorship can erase the past. Those who sacrifice to uphold their unalienable rights of free expression and peaceful assembly will be vindicated someday. This gesture of remembrance from the U.S. may provide encouragement to Chinese democracy activists and dissidents. On the anniversary, several civic groups in Taiwan held a memorial evening at Chiang Kai-shek Memorial Hall. A survivor named Wu Renhua said he has attended the memorial for 8 consecutive years. He noted that tonight's rain was the heaviest he could remember, but the public came despite the storm to pay their respects. Wu emphasized that while Hong Kong's Victoria Park Candlelight Vigil is no longer held openly, Taiwan can still commemorate publicly. He said this honors the victims of that day, supports prisoners of conscience in Hong Kong, and highlights the values of a democratic society. Facing threats from the CCP, he stressed the importance of maintaining freedom and living by democratic principles. On the same day, Taiwanese and Hong Kong residents held a candlelight vigil at 228 Park. Despite rain, about 60 to 70 people attended. Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te said commemorating June 4th is not only about mourning history, but also about keeping memory alive. He affirmed that Taiwan will continue to safeguard democracy and freedom. The Mainland Affairs Council called on Beijing to face the historic truth of June 4th, promote political reforms, and respond to citizens' demands for justice and basic rights. Organizers said that even 37 years later, the truth of June 4th remains blocked by the Chinese government, and victims' families and activists continue to face surveillance, repression, and silencing. Yet, history cannot vanish through forgetfulness, nor be rewritten by suppression. Through annual June 4th memorials, Taiwan's civil society stands in solidarity with those in China, Hong Kong, Tibet, the Uyghur region, and worldwide who strive for freedom, human rights, and democracy. In Hong Kong, June 4th commemorations at Victoria Park once brought together people from all across society, but now memorials have become acts of lone courage. Around 7 p.m. on June 4th, a man wearing a black shirt reading Sound of Silence stood outside Causeway Bay Station. Using a red pen, he wrote the character for person repeatedly on his forearm, wiped it off with cleaner, and then covered his eyes with a towel. Police later escorted him into a police vehicle. He may have been live streaming, but was immediately stopped. Chinese democracy activist Cai Shen-kun also posted on X commemorating June 4th. He quoted a student from that time who told a reporter, "I feel that after holding out for so many days with no result, our country will again spend 10 years, 20 years, or even decades under authoritarian rule." That warning was proven chillingly prophetic. 37 years later, that student's fears have not only come true, but the reality has been far harsher and more enduring than anyone expected. Looking back, it is deeply sobering. Many once believed that with economic growth, openness, and deeper integration with the world, China would eventually follow a path toward a freer, more open political system. But after the shots rang out at Tiananmen Square, reality diverged sharply from expectation. Cai Shen-kun noted that this authoritarian regime not only survives today, but has grown in economic output, technological capability, military strength, and international influence far beyond the former Soviet Union. What's particularly striking is how much of this rise depended on long-term Western support, funding, technology, markets, and institutional frameworks. The West assumed economic integration would bring political reform, and that trade would align values, but on China, that assumption failed. Facing a regime that has grown rapidly through globalization while consolidating authoritarian control and opposing the West ideologically and geopolitically, Western politicians, scholars, and media have yet to find an effective response. Many are confused, some adjust past assumptions, and others compromise or even pander for practical gains. He said that the students' concern about 10 years, 20 years, or even decades feels even heavier now. History has not unfolded as many hoped, and the vast gap between expectation and reality is at the root of widespread frustration, helplessness, and disillusionment today. The injustices of June 4th remain unredressed, and the truth continues to be deliberately hidden. The CCP not only distorts history, but also creates new suffering in reality. Recent hailstorms in Guan, Hebei, Jinan, Shandong, and Beijing remind the world that when a government ignores justice and suppresses truth, it risks losing the support of heaven and earth. In recent years, extreme weather events in China, floods, droughts, sandstorms, and heat waves have become more frequent. Climate change is a primary factor, but poor environmental management, urban planning failures, and ecological destruction all contribute. In densely populated, economically active northern regions like Hebei, Shandong, and Beijing, hailstorms have caused significant agricultural and property damage. At a deeper level, public frustration has surged under economic slowdown, youth unemployment, a real estate crisis, and strict social control. When disasters strike, the CCP routinely blames natural causes, while never reflecting on systemic indifference or governance failure. On July 20th, 2021, those subways were flooded, hundreds were trapped, dozens died, and local authorities failed to warn or rescue effectively, dismissing the tragedy as extreme weather. During earthquakes in Gansu, delayed rescue and chaotic relief left victims exposed to the cold. The so-called emergency mechanisms often only serve appearances. Each disaster exposes institutional negligence. A Chinese proverb says, "When people lack virtue, heaven and earth cannot tolerate them." Today, the frequent natural and social anomalies in China reflect both the wrath of nature and the resentment of the people, converging as the heaviest judgment on the current regime.
Next news. Breaking news from the White House.
Right now, the Russiagate story may be entering a completely different phase. Not another cable news food fight, not another recycled talking point. We're now talking about claims of declassified records, whistleblower interviews, and newly surfaced FBI and CIA material that supporters say could move this from argument into evidence. Tulsi Gabbard's release, the resurfacing of old House intel work, and new reporting from John Solomon we're all pointing to the same question. Who directed the intelligence? Who signed off on the assessments? And who knew the narrative was shaky from the start? If that trail is now opening up, then the people who sold this hoax to America have a very serious problem. You see, for years, the establishment hid behind one phrase, trust the intelligence. But what happens if the intelligence itself was shaped, narrowed, or directed to produce a pre-selected outcome against President Trump? See, that's why the story matters. The story is no longer just whether Russiagate was overblown. The story is who made the decision, what documents existed at the time, and whether top Obama-era officials pushed an assessment they wanted instead of the evidence supported. And according to the claims that are now circulating, investigators interviewed around 20 CIA and FBI officials, spent thousands of hours digging, and uncovered records that had been buried in a CIA vault for years. Then you connect that to Tulsi Gabbard's declassification push, to the old Devin Nunes warnings that were mocked at the time, and suddenly a very ugly picture starts to form. This is about whether the American people were manipulated, whether Trump was sabotaged before he even took office, and whether accountability is finally coming for the people who abused the system. And while the permanent bureaucracy loves hiding the truth until it's useful to them, smart Americans, they know you don't wait until the whole crowd catches on. See, if you could go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? The people who recognized oil early didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history. And today, a very similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. See, silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the mass build-out of modern industry. That's why I want you to check out Noble Gold Investments. Go to nextnewsgold.com right now. Standing strongest. Now, here's the twist. The corporate media don't want you to touch. See, it's not just about Barack Obama as a headline. See, the deeper issue is the machinery. Multiple voices are now zeroing in on how the intelligence community assessment was built, what was excluded, and whether conclusions were effectively ordered from the top. See, that's a totally different battlefield. If the fight moves from media spin to document trails, interview notes, and internal records, then the same people who laughed off these questions for years may soon have to answer them under oath. 20 CIA and FBI agents dropped a political nuke on Obama by confirming that Obama and a former CIA director fabricated the Russia hoax, which was locked away in a CIA vault for nearly a decade to discredit President Trump's election by manipulating intelligence. Watch.
Fox News alert, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing a bombshell report today that shows a conspiracy by a sitting president, Barack Obama, and his intel agencies to sabotage the president-elect, Donald Trump, brainwash the electorate, and undermine the legitimacy of an election.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't.
Gabbard got her hands on a House intel report that's been locked away in a CIA vault for almost a decade. Investigators spent over 2,000 hours looking into how the Russia hoax was born, interviewing 20 CIA and FBI officials. And it turns out that the Obama administration doctored the intelligence to make it look like Putin and Trump stole the election. A month after Trump beat Hillary, Barack Obama wasn't satisfied with his intelligence reporting and ordered his CIA director to create a new assessment of how Russia interfered with the election. This was a highly unusual move. John Brennan handpicked 5 CIA analysts to write the assessment, and they were siloed. None of them knew what the other was doing. And only one analyst was in charge of drafting this report. There was nothing routine about this, and it was a rush job to publish before Trump was sworn in. Nothing was coordinated with the other intelligence agencies either. Basically, this was home cooking for Barack Obama.
So if Obama and Brennan push a false intel assessment, the next question is simple. How far did the cover-up go? John Solomon says the Mar-a-Lago raid ties back to 2015 and 2016, and he names Obama as the man at the center of it.
Donald Trump's home,
because they had to cover up what happened all the way back to 2015 and 16. That's what that grand conspiracy. That's what the
Hillary?
government.
So, okay, they did these things. So there's an intel, there's a portion of the intel, CIA, FBI, whoever they are, thus the Department of Justice, wherever they came from.
That's right.
We're doing, but they're acting on behalf of whom?
I'm going to say Barack Obama is the head of the conspiracy when they're done. He'll be an unindicted co-conspirator if they get all the evidence that they think they're going to get from the agencies. Why? We know he was told Hillary Clinton in July was hanging a fake Russian signal. He allowed his administration to pursue a case. After the election, he was told that Vladimir Putin didn't interfere in the election to help Donald Trump, and he got it reversed and had it, even though the Intelligence Committee didn't agree, they changed it. On January 5th of 2017, 15 days before Donald Trump was about to come into office the first time, they sat in a room and said, hey, the FBI has concluded Mike Flynn is an innocent man. How can we make him a guilty man? The president sat in that meeting with the FBI. He didn't belong in a meeting like that. Barack Obama set in motion. Now, was he trying to help Hillary Clinton win the election? Of course. Where this all ends, I think I would not be surprised if before the end of the summer you saw Barack Obama get a grand jury subpoena. I would not be surprised.
Wow.
Remember, he has immunity because the president.
That's right.
So he can't claim the fifth.
And the other thing.
Oh, the end of the summer. What do you think about that? So Solomon's pointing straight at Obama in the January 5th meeting on Mike Flynn, ex-former CIA officer who worked under Brennan, makes it even sharper, saying Brennan belongs in prison. CIA officer Brian Dean White. John Brennan was my boss at the CIA, and he belongs in prison. And that's the headline right there at Fox News.
John Brennan was my boss at the CIA. He belongs in prison. Brian, that's a pretty heavy charge. Explain what your case is against Brennan and why.
Well, I think that the declassified intel that we've gotten over the past number of weeks shows a very clear seditious conspiracy. So understand that in the summer of 2016, that there was absolutely no predicate, and I don't need to tell you this, there was no predicate to start the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into President Trump and any allegations of Trump-Russia collusion. There was no evidence. Indeed, John Brennan briefed that to President Obama, that this whole thing was being cooked up by Hillary Clinton. So it was false. It was a Clinton smear, but yet the FBI launched it anyway. And then we've got this Steele dossier that both the FBI and the CIA investigated. They knew that it was garbage. They knew that it was coming from the Clinton campaign, but they did it or included it anyway. And now we get to this creation of this Obama ICA document, this Intel Community Assessment, that can normally take upwards of a year. I mentioned earlier. Brennan took charge of that at the direction of Barack Obama. He cooked up this document that had absolutely unverified information in it, garbage intel. He was warned by his Russia operations officers and analysts, don't include it, this Steele dossier. He did anyway, he and Comey. And then, of course, they briefed it to over 200 people in Washington, D.C., as New York Times later said, virtually guaranteeing it would leak. Right, exactly. So it was a final op by Barack Obama, James Comey, and John Brennan to destroy President Trump and rip away the rights of the voters who chose Donald Trump to be in the White House. So all that then collectively is a seditious conspiracy. John Brennan used his position at the CIA at the direction of Barack Obama to attack this country, to try to destroy Donald Trump in his first term. And they got away with a lot. And so that is why I want to see John Brennan in prison. He absolutely...
So that's the inside case against Brennan, Clapper, and Comey. Now, go back to the moment Devin Nunes tried to warn the country in real time that Trump transition officials were being monitored and unmasked. Devin Nunes vindicated.
Good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. I recently confirmed that on numerous occasions, the intelligence community incidentally collected information about U.S. citizens involved in the Trump transition. Details about U.S. persons associated with the incoming administration, details with little or no apparent foreign intelligence value, were widely disseminated in intelligence community reporting. Third, I have confirmed that additional names of Trump transition team members were unmasked. And fourth and finally, I want to be clear, none of this surveillance was related to Russia or the investigation of Russian activities or of the Trump team. The House.
So Nunes says it early. The SWAT moved fast to sideline him. Up next, more declassified material points to Hillary Clinton's camp and even George Soros' world pushing the Trump-Russia smear as diversion from her email mess. More declassified documents and emails released by CIA director reveal Clinton, Hillary, conspired with the intelligence community and George Soros to overthrow the United States government in 2016.
Documents contain emails, allegedly, from the senior vice president of the George Soros Open Society Foundation. He quotes a Clinton campaign advisor saying, quote, "It will be a long-term affair and to demonize Putin and Trump, and adds that, quote, later the FBI will put more oil into the fire, unquote. Other emails reveal Hillary Clinton approved the idea of tying Trump and Russia to election interference, and that was a scheme hoping the allegations would distract people from her own email scandal. These documents provide clear evidence that Hillary Clinton's campaign was behind the Russia hoax and that the FBI knew what the Clinton team was up to, acknowledging that the info they were receiving about the Trump campaign may have come from the Clinton camp. Despite this, the Obama intel community forged ahead with their 2017 assessment, concluding that Russia aspired to help Trump win the election.
So if Hillary's team helped light the match, the next clip shows who kept the fire burning. Tulsi Gabbard's declassified documents lay out how Obama rejected the original finding and had Brennan's CIA produce the narrative anyway. And this is what we presented earlier.
Just got a peek inside Obama's black book, and it turns out Barack knew the Russia hoax was a hoax all along, but pushed it anyway to sabotage the Trump presidency. DNI Tulsi Gabbard declassifying pages and pages of documents showing Obama's intel guys briefed him just weeks after the 2016 election that the Russians didn't actually sway the election. Quote, we assessed that Russian and criminal actors did not impact the recent U.S. election results. Criminal activity also failed to reach the scale and sophistication necessary to change election outcomes. But Obama just couldn't accept that. So he and his staff instructed intel agencies to cook up new reports to support Russia collusion. Quote, after the meetings, Clapper's executive assistant emailed intelligence community leaders, tasking them to create a new intelligence community assessment per the president's request that detailed the tools Moscow used and actions it took to influence the 2016 election. Tulsi Gabbard described what she found as a conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people. And she says the people involved should be prosecuted and has made a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. We knew Hillary created the dossier, and now we have proof that Barack was calling the shots and the documents to prove it.
So that's the alleged chain of command right there. Obama, Brennan, Comey, Clapper, now shifting to Trump's response because he's making it clear what comes next, rooting out the deep state holdovers still buried inside the DOJ and FBI. Trump announcing he will hunt down the scum in the deep state after Comey confirmed agents are waiting his term out.
Over the weekend, Mr. President, he suggested that there's still people in your DOJ and FBI that are waiting you out. They're waiting until your administration is over to get back to work. Do you think those people are still in the DOJ and FBI?
I hope not. Well, if they are, we're going to seek them out. We'll seek them out. We'll get rid of them. Okay? Because you have in every agency, you have scum. And certainly they did in the FBI and DOJ. But Todd Blanche is doing a fantastic job. Cash is doing a very good job. So we will prevail. I've been standing here a long time with you, many years, right? And they've been saying, I think it's it. I think he's trouble. Here I am, you know. It's a very constant situation. But I think you're going to find that we have great people in the FBI. And we have great people in DOJ. Todd Blanche has really been doing a great job.
So President Trump was responding to what Comey said, telling the rank and file to hang on for 2.5 years and they could rebuild under a Democrat.
Not looked at from the top level. The people running it, if you're bragging about forcing out career prosecutors and agents because the president doesn't like a lawful investigation they conducted, something is seriously broken at the top. But I have great confidence in the people down below who are just trying to hang on. And I'm urging them, hang on 2.5 years, and then we can rebuild these institutions. But we need good people in those roles. America does.
All right. Director Comey, let me turn to your...
Hopefully we'll see him in an orange jumpsuit soon. He's basically waving the flag for the same bureaucracy. Trump says he's cleaning out next. John Solomon says new documents inside the FBI may be serious enough. The grand jury will need to hear directly from Obama himself.
If you saw a grand jury subpoena to former President Barack Obama, I think there will be a need to summon him based on some of the evidence that's now public or about to become public. We've done a lot of talking about him, and he can't be indicted most likely, which also means he can't claim the Fifth Amendment. And I would keep an eye on that dynamic. I also think that there is big new documents being found in the last few days inside the FBI, the Justice Department, and inside the intelligence communities that go all the way back to the origins of Crossfire Hurricane, all the way up to and including Jack Smith. And I think there's going to be some pretty big revelations with that. And so you'll have information coming out, and that information immediately being digested into a accountability prosecution team down here in Florida. And so the one takeaway I had from just doing a lot of reporting this week is that I think the grand jury is going to need to hear from Barack Obama to understand some of the things that happened on his watch. And
So we may soon be hearing from Barack Obama because the pressure keeps building. The paper trail may be getting bigger. Solomon adds another piece, text showing Hillary planned to use Biden as the plant that Trump has the Russia problem. That was the plant to line up the public.
Solomon, let's start with the breaking news, and I believe you might have a little bit of news to break either tonight or tomorrow.
yeah, I do. We'll lean into it right now. So this email was, and these intercepts were part of a very secret U.S. program where we spy on our enemies. And the government has the ability to determine if this email is real, but technology it would have to reveal would be very sensitive. And so there is a balancing act that has played out here in the last few weeks as people decided what to do with this. This is an explosive piece of evidence, but it's just a piece of evidence. We have to now, in the government, find out, did it really happen this way? But I will tell you something that did happen in the summer of 16. U.S. intelligence, when they first intercepted this, began to look at some other things. Could this be true? Could the Russians really have something? Have they stumbled onto a plot? One of the things they intercepted were text messages that showed that the first thing Hillary Clinton was going to do was to turn to Vice President Joe Biden and see if he would take the first blow against Donald Trump. Would he go out right in the middle of July and say, I think Donald Trump's got a Russia problem? Well, they watched that happen in real time. First in 2 interviews, then at a speech at the Democratic National Committee. It led some of our U.S. intelligence analysts to believe that what the Russians had captured was an ongoing plot and that it was really going on. And then a few days later, the FBI opens up, just like the Russian intelligence suggested. What we are sadly lacking is a complete investigation. This 10 years later, Chris Wray's FBI, John Durham's investigation, the U.S. Intelligence Committee, James Comey never fully investigated this. We could authenticate this if we put our elbow grease into it. The government owes us an answer to find out if this is all true. But Joe Biden.
So, what does it mean? It means that the Russiagate debate appears to be moving out of the realm of theory and into the realm of records. That's a real earthquake here. Not just accusations, documentation. Not just outrage, decision change. Supporters of President Trump are arguing that newly declassified files, FBI discoveries, and old suppressed reports could establish who directed the narrative. Barack Obama. Right? Who approved the ICA, and whether officials knowingly advanced claims that did not match underlying intelligence. That's why Devin Nunes is suddenly being discussed again, and that's why Brendan, Clapper, Comey, Crossfire Hurricane, and January 17th all keep resurfacing. The question now is simple. What can be proven, who can be summoned, and how much of this story was hidden from the American people on purpose? And then, of course, there's James Comey out there practically telling people inside the system just to hang on until a Democrat gets power again. Well, President Trump makes clear the deep state cleanup is not over. That is the current moment. The Trump administration is pushing transparency, declassification, and accountability while the old guard is signaling to hold the line and wait it out. Americans have every reason to ask why. If the Russia hoax was built through manipulated intelligence, selective leaks, and coordinated political messaging, then this was not just dirty politics. It was an attack on a duly elected president and on the voters who put him there. President Trump was right to fight. His supporters were right to question, and now the people who smeared him may finally be cornered by their own paper trail. Share this report, comment below, and subscribe if you are done letting the same corrupt class rewrite history. And yes or no, should every official tied to the creation of the Trump-Russia narrative be forced to testify under oath? It's time for that conversation to take place. But I want you to stay connected with me so we can continue to have this conversation. There's a number on the screen, 844-840-4963. Thousands and thousands of patriots have already texted the words raw feed to that number. Why? Because they are sick and tired of being suppressed. They're sick and tired of never getting notification when the news drops, because you guys depend on the Next News Network to deliver you the unfiltered truth. I want to make sure you continue to get it. We're cutting out the middleman, cutting out YouTube directly. We're going straight to you. So make sure you text those words to 844-840-4963. And we are on the cusp of the greatest celebration of our republic. President Trump is behind it, and we are celebrating right alongside him. I want to celebrate with you. We've got some new merch. It's down below in the merch shelf and at the link shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Pick out some America 250 gear and celebrate America 250 with us.
The system controls information. Information control is power. They don't want you to see this. The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.
Next News, breaking news.
What if the biggest story in Washington is not a bill, not a hearing, not another media-fed outrage cycle, but a direct visual rebuke of everything Americans were told to accept? For years, the people running this city acted like decay was normal, graffiti was normal, encampments were normal, dead fountains, damaged monuments, and public spaces that looked abandoned were just the price of modern life. President Trump is proving that was all a lie. And now the White House is turning restored parks, repaired memorials, and revived public spaces into a blunt political argument that the left cannot answer. And the question is simple. If decline was a choice, who chose it? You see, this matters far beyond Washington, D.C., because the nation's capital is supposed to reflect the strength, dignity, and confidence of the United States of America. When tourists arrive in the capital and see disorder, neglect, vandalism, and monuments falling apart, they're not just seeing maintenance failures. They're seeing the result of an ideology that tolerated collapse and called it compassion, tolerated ugliness and called it equity, tolerated disorder and called it progress. And that is exactly why the Trump administration's message is so powerful, because decline was not inevitable. And according to the White House, in just 14 months, more than 500 instances of graffiti were cleaned up. 153 homeless encampments were removed. 22 fountains were restored. 28 statues were repaired and cleaned, added potholes fixed, debris hauled out of parks and ponds, benches installed, lights repaired, and suddenly the argument becomes unavoidable. Government can restore order when it actually wants to. And that exposes the failed choices made by the previous administration and the Democrat machine that normalized decay. Now, before we go further, if you care about restoring strength in every part of life, this message is worth hearing, because I've tried hundreds of supplements over the years. Nothing, and I mean nothing, has delivered results like C60 Evo. See, this Nobel Prize winning molecule, it actually made lab animals live 90% longer. I take 2 teaspoons of this every single morning. My brain fog gone. Joint pain I've had for years virtually eliminated. My wife's skin looks 10 years younger. My energy levels feel like I'm 20 years younger. Now, take note of this, because this molecule is 172 times more powerful than vitamin C, and it's even worth more than gold per ounce. The scientist behind it, Chris Burris, has been making this in his Houston lab since 1991. Now, let's be clear, this is not just another antioxidant, okay? It works at the cellular level where aging actually happens. The Paris study, it showed longest life extension in history. And now my family is living proof that it works. There's a link down in the description. Visit c60evo.com/NNN and use code NNN for exclusive savings. Whether you want more energy, clearer thinking, better skin, or just to feel young again, this is your answer. c60evo.com/NNN. Use code NNN at checkout, because 90% longer life starts with one decision. Don't wait. Transform your health today, and you won't regret it. And that brings us right back to a story about what happens when leadership stops managing decline and starts reversing it. See, here's the part that makes this bigger than a cleanup project. The administration is not merely fixing broken things. It's building a visual case for national renewal ahead of America's 250th birthday. That's why the Lincoln Memorial story, why it matters so much. It's not just about a repair crew or a leaking surface. It is about choosing one of the most iconic places in America and saying out loud that this country should look proud again. And once you see the hidden story beneath that monument, the whole message makes sense. So many posts here to go through. It feels good to see people in our capital city enjoying their parks again. Turns out all it took to bring the community back out was cleaning things up and turning the fountains back on. This is just one of the videos posted of the beautiful fountains now functioning again in Washington, D.C. People out enjoying them again as they were intended. Like I said, when tourists visit our nation, they get out of Union Station and they see the decay, they see the decline. That's the message that is sent right to that tourist, that these Americans don't really care. But we do care. We do have national pride. President Trump has national pride. And that's exactly what bringing all these monuments and fountains and beauty, bringing it back to life and restoring that national pride, so we don't look like a joke when the tourist gets off that train. I mean, look at these beautiful visuals. I mean, that is all because of President Trump. So what you just saw blows up the media favorite DC narrative on decline. Clean it up, turn the fountains back on, the families come right back out. Now, One American News puts real numbers on Trump's cleanup push. 22 fountains restored, 28 statues repaired, and hundreds of graffiti hits erased. A Daily Caller article released on Monday details some of the extensive work that's being done in D.C. since the president launched the Make D.C. Safe and Beautiful Again task force in March of last year. Check this out.
Beauty of the nation's capital city. A Daily Caller article released Monday detailed some of the extensive work that's being done to Washington, D.C. since the president launched the Make D.C. Safe and Beautiful Again task force in March of last year. In just 14 months, 22 fountains and 28 statues were repaired and restored. 500 instances of graffiti were removed, 150 potholes fixed, and 250 truckloads of debris have been extracted from ponds and parks. The task force also fixed and installed nearly 1,200 benches and 1,700 lights in addition to erecting 6 new statues. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum said decline is a choice and that no president has done as much for the safety and beauty of America's capital as President Trump.
You know, I see those fountains, I see the sprinklers going off in the White House lawn, and I'm reminded of when I brought my family to the White House. And my own children did news reports from the briefing room. My youngest son didn't want to do the news report. He was too captivated by the sprinkler system at the White House, and he was playing in the puddles there. And my wife and I were just watching the innocence of a young child just playing in the puddles at the White House in the middle of some of the most historic moments in American history. Just the pureness of that water, the same as the pureness of the water in those fountains, flowing again in D.C. So this isn't just cosmetic, it's a full-scale restoration after years of swamp neglect. Emily Miller goes inside one of the biggest fixes yet. The Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool repair crews say will finally stop the leaking. So here's an update on what's going on with the reflecting pool, which President Trump has stated will be done in just a few weeks. It will be American flag blue and just in time for the celebration of America 250.
Oh, hey, everyone's saying I should ask you all my questions.
Okay, ask away.
So you're standing on an expansion joint.
Slab right here has a lip like this that slides under with this one, and this one has the reverse. Yep. Open up. Go, go.
Yeah, I can explain back and forth.
Gotcha. Let's say ever in my life.
Exclusive reflecting pool news. Emily Miller, inside Trump's repairs at Cruz, say will finally stop the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool from leaking through the gaps. Yeah, Barack Obama tried to fix it, and as soon as Barack Obama finished, the swamp reclaimed its place. The mold and the algae all just came roaring back to the Lincoln Reflecting Pool. President Trump fixing it the right way. The leaking pool fix shows this operation goes much deeper than a fresh coat of paint. The White House laying out the scorecard from graffiti removal to cleared encampments to a Capitol's being made safe and beautiful again. In just 14 months, POTUS has restored our nation's capital, making it safe and beautiful. Decline was a choice, the White House says, not anymore. 500 instances of graffiti cleaned, 153 homeless encampments removed, 22 fountains restored, 28 statues cleaned, and more. Making D.C. beautiful again. That's the message from the White House. Decline was a choice. Next, we go beneath the Lincoln Memorial itself, where a long-hidden undercroft is finally opening to the public after years of restoration and renewed focus on honoring American history. The undercroft beneath the Lincoln Memorial and its fascinating story that's suddenly in the news because the public can finally see it. The Lincoln Memorial sits on what used to be a swampy, marshy land, the Potomac Flats, that was reclaimed from the river through dredging and filling. When construction started in 1914, engineers knew the soft soil couldn't support the massive marble structure and the huge statue of Lincoln without it sinking. The solution was to excavate down roughly 40 to 50 feet, install about 120 to 122 massive concrete pillars, sometimes called piers or piles. They were driven all the way down to solid bedrock, and the pillars support the entire weight of the memorial above. The huge open space they created underneath, a cavernous, roughly 50,000 square foot structural chamber, nearly twice the size of the memorial itself, is called the undercroft. For 100 years, the space stayed hidden from the public, basically a giant concrete forest of towering pillars holding everything up, with some original construction graffiti still visible on them, even stalactites from water seeping through over time. The National Park Service has turned part of it, about 15,000 square feet, into a new museum and exhibit space. You can now walk in and see the actual massive concrete supports that were put in because of the swampy ground, along with interactive exhibits about the engineering challenges, the memorial's construction, and its powerful role in American history. Check this out. This is remarkable, guys.
Call Washington a swamp is a metaphor, but also the literal truth. So when planning began for the Lincoln Memorial in the early 1910s, builders faced a real sinking problem. Their solution led to one of Washington's best-kept secrets until now.
We are underneath the Lincoln Memorial right here, standing with these 120 massive concrete pillars. They go 50 feet in the ground, down into the swamp, down to the bedrock, to actually support the enormous weight. This is all reclaimed land.
Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum took us through what's known as the memorial's undercroft, a term usually reserved for the vaulted basement of a medieval castle or cathedral.
Above us is Lincoln sitting in his reflective pose.
At 50,000 square feet, the undercroft is so massive it's almost twice the size of the memorial above. For years, Hollywood's imagined a secret underground to the memorial. And the undercroft really is one.
These are stalactites, aren't? Oh, I just got dripped on.
Yes, they're still active, they're still dripping. And of course, as the rainwater comes through cracks in the granite, it seeps down here, picks up calcium.
Visitors will see it for themselves starting this June in a new museum hanging directly beneath the memorial.
I thought it'd be a good idea is to have more of an educational role for the Lincoln Memorial.
Philanthropist David Rubenstein helped bring the undercroft out of the shadows, donating a quarter of the $69 million needed for its transformation.
You can't really be a great country if you don't really honor your history and understand your history.
He hopes it expands our understanding of Lincoln, whose own life wasn't as grand as the marble above suggests.
He had a very complicated life, had a lot of tragedy in his life. A lot of his children died before they were very old, and had a very complicated marriage as well. But in the end, he rose up to the occasion and became, I think, our greatest president.
Some of the exhibits will also be about the memorial itself.
And I think it's still about freedom, hope, and today it's about inclusion.
You know what's interesting? They bring up Mary Todd Lincoln, the marriage between Abraham Lincoln and his wife. And not very far from where I am sitting is where Mary Todd Lincoln was once held in an asylum in her final days in Illinois. I'm reminded of that history every time I drive by the place. So history is all over this great nation, and President Trump is letting it known. But the real punch here is the symbolism. Americans can now see crowds enjoying cleaner parks, restored fountains again, but the Lincoln Memorial adds something deeper. Beneath that monument is the massive undercroft, the hidden structural world of giant concrete supports sunk deep into the old swamp ground to hold up one of the country's most sacred sites. For more than a century, people saw that monument without seeing the foundation beneath it, and that's really the metaphor. The Trump administration is saying renewal is not just cosmetic. You repair the physical beauty, yes, but you also repair what supports the nation underneath. Order, safety, civic pride, memory, and respect for American greatness. And that is why this story lands. It turns restoration itself into an America First argument. So as the country marches towards its 250th anniversary, pay very close attention to what the Trump administration is doing in Washington. These are not random repairs. They are connected pieces of a larger mission. Make America's capital worthy of the American people again. Clean monuments matter. Working fountains matter. Safer parks matter. Beautiful public spaces, they all matter. They lift morale. They restore pride and reject the poison of managed decline that the left spent years trying to make permanent. Who can ever forget all of the visuals of radical leftists tearing down our monuments? President Trump is showing the country that when leaders stop making excuses, things can be fixed, and fixed fast, on time, and under budget. See, that is a win for residents, it's a win for visitors, and it's a win for the idea of America itself. If you agree that our capital should reflect strength, beauty, and order, Go ahead, hit share right now. Comment below and subscribe to Next News. And yes or no, answer me this. Should every major American city follow Trump's model and choose restoration over decline? Let's have a conversation. And let's stay connected too. I set up this number you see on your screen right there just for you, so that we can maintain connection when the algorithm or when notifications choose not to. All you got to do is text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. Thousands of patriots have already joined this movement.
But we begin with breaking news. A tragic update from 5 o'clock. A child run over by their parents has now died.
Hate to report this to you this evening. You are looking live at the scene near Southwest 44th and Santa Fe. Our news crew there tells us a lot of officers and many detectives have now arrived at the scene. Officers tell us earlier this was an accident, a tragic accident. The parents, we don't expect to be facing any charges. They hit their own 1-year-old child who has now died. We don't know if that will change that the child has passed away, but we will keep you updated on the situation here near Southwest 44th and Santa Fe.
Хлопці.
Chinese?
Вони вас усіх повбивають.
But we begin with breaking news. A tragic update from 5 o'clock.
Jennifer Lopez going viral for this interview.
So what's your take?
You have to be born in New York to be a New Yorker. Yes!
No, I know.
Everybody wants to claim our city, but you have to be born in New York. You have to be born in one of the 5 boroughs to be a New Yorker.
Well, here's the thing.
I think that we should expand this thinking. I think that this is a really good starting point. But I have some conclusions I would like to draw from this reasoning.
Okay.
When I moved here in 2012,
yes,
everyone was like, in 10 years you can call yourself a New Yorker.
Oh, is that what they said?
Yeah, and then I stayed 10 years.
Said no New Yorker ever.
No, the New Yorkers used to have this as a rule.
That was a rule?
Yes, you didn't know about this?
No, I didn't get the memo. I did not sign the petition.
Let's say I've been here for 50 years. I'm 90 years old. And you go, are you a New Yorker? And I go, no.
I have to say no. You live in New York. You take on characteristics of New Yorkers, probably by that time. You have a New York sensibility.
This is one of the things that I think is really funny. The way that she expresses this is the exact thing that they demonize with nationalism from other countries. For example, some random person from Africa can't go to Norway and be Norwegian. But if you said that, it's totally different.
I pay New York taxes.
You pay... Yeah, you pay New York taxes.
But I can't call it.
When you're born in New York is when you're really a New Yorker.
So if I've been here for 50 years...
What did I just say? Do I need to say it? See, this is very New York, right here. I said what I said, and I meant it.
Okay, what's the next thing?
Self-love should be a subject in school from kindergarten all the way through college. Because they teach us things intellectually, but an intellectual mother with no emotional intelligence is dangerous. It's a dangerous person. You have to keep going until you become a good person.
And there would be a lot of people that never come out. There would be a lot of people stuck in self-care class.
I think that this is a great example of why some people shouldn't be able to vote. Now, I'm not going to say what kinds of people. I'm not going to say the group of people that somebody could be a part of, but I am going to say that there are some people who probably shouldn't be voting.
Kamala Harris gets it. I know as President of the United States, Kamala will fight for our freedom, the freedom of immigrants and immigrant families to chase the American dream.
See, every single time they want us to be accepting of different cultures. They only say this kind of stuff whenever it isn't their actual community, it's not their culture. They obviously would feel totally different if it was their culture. They don't believe what they're saying. They're just simply telling you what you want to hear, using your values against you, so they can subvert you and further gain a bigger foothold inside of your environment so they can take advantage of you. How much do you think she got paid for this? Well, probably too much because it didn't work.
Okay, everyone, that will be it for. There we go. Okay, well, I'll be back playing World of Warcraft a little bit later. So, thank you guys for watching, commenting, subscribing, and sharing this with other people who like that content. It helps the channel tremendously. And have a great rest of your day.